All right, all right. We are here. We are here. So, what's happening, family? KCL family. So we'll get going here in a bit. So we are here tonight with UFOologist Roderick Martin, and so we're gonna have some interesting conversation tonight, and so we're gonna take it into some directions that probably never connected before, but we'll do it tonight. So I'm Reginald Martin. I am the founder of Comedic Centered Living, and here on this channel I always say I like to help people that are transitioning from Christianity to more spiritual and African spirituality concepts, and help them to where they can get over the negative Christian programming. And so you get over the negative Christian programming so that you can live life boldly, authentically, unapologetically, and on your terms without guilt or shame. That's the idea. So here I like to say I answer the questions that Mama and them said you're not supposed to ask. Man, we're gonna be talking about some questions today that not only Mama and them said you're not supposed to ask, but nobody really wants to talk about. So we're going to be talking about why the big secret. So today we got Roderick Martin. So he's a TV personality and a show host, and he's an expert ufologist with the Mutual UFO Network, or better known as MUFON. He also hosts the podcast and YouTube channel Why the Big Secret, and where ufologists, researchers, experiences, speakers, and authors discuss the big issues. Roderick has uncovered cultural differences in many minority experiences, researched UFO encounters, interviewed alien audiences from the minority perspective. He has become arguably the most trusted source on these topics within the Black community. Roderick has been featured in numerous documentaries, including Discovery Plus's Alien Endgame, Forbidden Knowledge TV's Black Knight satellite documentary, and Fox Tubi's documentary called Aliens Abduction and Roswell 75. He has also made featured appearances on Gaia's Beyond Belief show with George Noory, and filmed upcoming shows on Gaia's Open Minds with Regina Meredith and History Channel's Ancient Aliens. Roderick founded one of the most popular clubs on Clubhouse, social audio app, and wrote the book, How to Become a Clubhouse Influencer. The club of over 27,000 members is a relaxed venue where luminaries can share their stories, passions, thoughts, and the UAP phenomenon. I got to find out what that is. And visions of the space future. Past guests include Linda Moulton Howe, Billy Carson, Grant Cameron, Alan Steinfeld, Barbara Lamb, Whitley Strieber, Kathleen Martin, retired Air Force Captain Robert Sales, countless authors, and real-life experiences. Roderick now works and lives in Texas. What's happening, Roderick, my brother? And this is literally my brother.
Well, here's the deal. I got a problem. I need to go off camera for about 2 seconds to turn out this audio. My computer is on, it's listening to us, it's providing this feedback. And then when I come back, I'm going to talk about your mama. I'm going
to hurt you.
All right. I'll be right back. 1 second.
All right. All right, family. We'll be waiting for him to come back here and get loaded up. So we'll have some good, interesting discussion here. So for show. So hope everybody's doing tonight. Let me know if y'all in the chat here, guys. Hit me with someone who's here. Where you at? Where you from? So let's talk. Let's have a little fun tonight. Get down tonight. Woo, get down tonight. All right, he's back.
I'm ready. We all good. So anyway, yeah, I'm glad to be here, brother. So we got a lot of things we can cover, talk about, especially when it gets down to our upbringing when it gets down to it. Of course, you can cover all those questions, but the most exciting part is being UFOs, talking about UFOs, and that UAP stands for unidentified area phenomenon. So there you go.
Unidentified area phenomenon. Okay, you're still gonna have to tell me what the heck is unidentified area phenomenon.
We'll get to it whenever you're ready.
All right. So brother, so introduce the people to who you are, your journey. Because I know here on this channel, again, we talk about the journey from religion to spirituality, and I know as a UFOologist, you probably had to have your ideas about life, religion, and all that expanded. You might have just had ideas shattered. Talk to us about that.
Well, let's I'll give them a backstory first. So let's go back to when the change begun. And I think, brother, I saw a UFO in front of our house when I was 12 years old. And it may have been the most family secret because, having that nickname Cuckoo, there's not every day you're going to go tell somebody, hey, I saw a UFO. In fact, not even a neighborhood bully, how we grew up, will come out and say, man, I saw a UFO last night. Street credit gone, right? It's gone. So it was one of the embedded secrets. But at this point, growing up the way we grew up, where our mother typically, the Bible is everywhere in the house. I mean, it's almost in the windows, it's in the bathroom, it's in the couch, it's in the kitchen. It's, you can be sleeping, you're going to hear the Bible, whether she's, marching down through the hallways and all of these things. And so at this point, you would think that, you raise a child and then of course he grows up to be what you intended him to be. But for us, I think it's a lot of curiosity. But for me, seeing that particular moment coming into the house that night, and as you knew how we grew up, most of us hung out at the street corners down there under the lights. And by that time, I think you were probably already working at Burger King. And so you were already, going a whole different direction. You're like, hey, I'm getting a job and get the hell up out of here. Right. So at this point, we're at the street lights, and when mom flips that lights or it's time to come in, you see your porch light flips. And so that was that moment. And just so happened that particular night, I was the first one. And so the joke is now you got the walk of shame. You got to go in early. But now I look back on it was probably the most, I got the prize, right? And so it was just really dark right there. And, we grew up by the zoo. And so therefore, if it wasn't helicopters flying around looking for lions and tigers and whatever got loose, or if we don't hear the at night, the hungry lions. And so at that literally, yeah, a lot of people didn't know. And every now and then something gets out and they coming through the neighborhood, and so that's just how we grew up. But that particular night, the sun, the night sky was just meeting and the stars was coming out. And I looked up and there it was. I saw this kind of a white disc that was kind of like zipping. And then there was two jets following behind it. Now, at that moment, I didn't know the significance of the moment. I just knew what I looked at was like, wow, that could be whatever. And then, of course, at the neighborhood store, you got the little magazine racks, or as we would get. So you got the UFO magazines and the alien comic books and all these things. And so at this point, but it was just seared in my brain at this time. And of course, going through high school and everything else, you begin to get curious, but you can't get too curious or off the reservation because mom had us on this reservation of religion. And so we can get into that,
Yeah. So, I mean, and for real. So when we talk about, I tell people that that was probably the only place mom was never late, was going to church. That used to tick me off so bad. So anywhere I wanted to be, we were never on time. But church, we was the first one. We opened that bad boy up.
Well, and she got better. She got better where church become into the house. You know what I'm saying? Now church is in the house.
You have to leave house.
Yeah, 24/7, 12, 365 plus OT, right? So we in it now.
So how does that journey for you? Because like you said, I mean, we both grew up in a household where, I mean, Bible thumping was a whole new word or a whole nother phenomenon in our house. I mean, it was, man, you got prayed on, prayed at, talked at, everything. So we grew up a certain way, And I know there was even a time that, after I went off to college and stuff, you were still in the house,
Yep.
as my younger brother, my kid brother, you were still there. So I know you were probably experiencing some things that maybe I hadn't even experienced. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I think that, you know, being around and let's give mom a few props. She was a entrepreneur. She tried,
Hmm.
at all times she had her spiritual name, the Shulamite. She was a seamstress and one of the best around. I mean, bar none. I mean, she could just create some stuff. So she always had this dream, but it was tied around the success of God is going to give you this Jesus, right? Jesus is going to give
Hmm.
you, your your golden ticket if you follow the path of the yellow brick road that was set out in that, as a metaphor speaking, And so, having done that, with a little bit of naivety, I got to follow this road. I don't know anything else, right? I don't
Hmm.
know. And of course, by this time, you're already, like you said, I'm left at the house. I'm the youngest, so now I'm there. I'm in it. I'm all in, right? And so at this point, but let me back up for a minute. My story probably changed, and you probably forgot this, but you remember I burnt down the church. You remember that, right?
No, I don't remember that one.
Yeah, I burnt down the church. Back behind us, there was about 5 houses down. Michael and all of them, the kids, they used to have church. Michael used to preach, little Michael, and there was a garage there,
I
and
remember the garage.
well, it burned down because I set it on fire, not intentionally, but I was playing with a little match. They preach it. This is our neighborhood kids' church because now we're trying to follow in the path. And so
Okay, well, see, I didn't know that was the church.
that was the church. Yep, that was the church. But we used to preach there all the time. And so I see it right now. I had a little lighter. It was a little mattress. And I just and she would, and I'm trying to get water and put it out and all of this. And man, this thing burnt to the ground to a crisp. And you got to imagine the trauma now that the symbolic of, as a kid, we calling this our church. And then we're trying to, duplicate or mimic our parents and all of this stuff. And now I'm the one cuckoo that burnt the church down. And
Right.
and I'll never forget Mr. Wilson, the landlord comes over, and I'm standing behind the door and he's telling mom, you're gonna have to pay for it. And the protection of that moment was so surreal because I was terrified. And she stood her ground and she said, my son ain't paying for sugar honey iced tea. You know what I'm saying? And you got insurance, blah, blah, blah. But I think it was a turmoil to the beginning there because, it was rent thing. She was trying to, as a single mom and all that. But so you bring that into where I'm going. And now, I done burnt the church. I done seen a UFO. My nickname is Cuckoo. My brothers are all 6-footers and high school athletes. And I'm trying to figure it all out, right? It's like,
Hmm.
what do you do? You the shortest one, and now you causing the issues, right? And so that was the first part of the challenge. But at that time, I think you probably still, or me, were probably still like being embedded. You're going to be forgiven. Just ask for forgiveness, right? And,
Hmm.
and so now you're trying to. But then you start playing with it as a kid. You go over there and steal the neighbor's cat. Oh, but I want forgiveness. Or we're going to go down there and, we used to jump fences and steal this guy's chickens, but I can ask for forgiveness. So I probably took it to the limit. But at this point, I realized that there was something else harboring behind this. And it was just that journey. So,
Yeah, yeah. So how did that these because I can think about how mom was extremely talented as a
oh my
seamstress. I
God. Yeah.
mean, people would come to her, and I know that they were people. She could create a suit. She create dresses for people, and at that time she was always struggling, but she had this talent that people from all around would come to her, you know. And I think that a big part of even why I do what I do now is because I remember that, and I know a big part of why she never really made a lot of money is because she never charged it. You know, she never charged a lot of money because she really didn't believe that her skills were worth a lot. Even though people would tell her how good she is, she would still struggle with charging for her gift, you know. So she struggled, we struggle, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, and as far as we were concerned, you know, we dealt with a lot of that growing up poor. How does growing up like that, or how did growing up like that impact you, and like moving into the things that you wanted to do then and things that you wanted to do now? How did that mentality, I guess I really could say a poverty mentality, a lack of belief in ourselves, how did that impact you then? What did it do for you?
Well, I think for me, um, I didn't see mom not really from my perspective, undercharging. I think she was always looking for acceptance, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And to do that, she will then devalue herself, her skills to be accepted. You
To be
know,
like, yep.
she knew she was good. She knew that. She knew because she would accept the job of the impossible and she would make you look good and all that. But it was just that thing of being accepted because she had other things she was dealing with behind the scenes of her self-esteem and all of these things. Now I can look back on it, right? And
Yeah, yeah. She was
so
even dealing with psychological issues and stuff, you
yeah.
know?
So
Yeah.
when you think about it now, that was a whole bigger picture at this. And now, of course, some of those things instilled in us, and of course, not intentionally, but unintentionally, right? And so at this point, we're most people are going to be shaped by their experiences and their environment, and so therefore, it wasn't uncommon that we did pick up some of the traits of staying up all night working while you sleep. I wake up at the crack of noon and by the time you getting up, by the time I'm getting up, you going to bed. I mean, it's we just the opposite on that spectrum. But I think we both picked up her 24-hour work clock, though, right? So,
Mhm, mhm.
um, and so I think for me, not knowing at the moment what poor was because the reality was the reality, right? Well, I'm in it. I didn't know, and my borders were the neighborhood. And, we
Yeah.
didn't travel or go anywhere, so
Didn't even know you were poor.
didn't even
So,
know
well,
what.
at least I never even thought about it. It's just what it was, you know?
Yeah, you get what I'm saying? And so it wasn't until you get invited over somebody else's house, or I remember going to high school. Well, let me back up. There was one kid, his name was Eddie. Eddie had this scooter, and he lived like way up Ewing, somewhere else, but he would come down on this little moped scooter. And if you caught him first, you were the best of the days because you can get on the scooter and ride with him, and you just stick on him like glue because you can go everywhere with him. And that's when you realize you can afford a scooter. And then you start seeing other remnants of, like you're saying, the inability to be able to afford some things. Because at the point, we're talking food stamps, we're talking being able to go up to the store and we was getting that big old block of cheese, and you're
The good
talking,
mint cheese.
yeah, I mean, the big stuff. And, and all of those things was just, we waited for the first of the month just as much as our mom did, right? Because now it's Christmas for 2 days, right? So, and it's just pretty much at this point. But when I look back from where I'm at today, and my own children, the dream of what I always say, that the motivation of you know getting out of Brokeville is crowded in that town. You're just trying to give yourself the where you can say, hey, I can see the difference between this and that. But now, of course, I've been around a lot of places, so I now know the difference between wealthy, the difference between being rich, which is two different things. And for the audience, if you want to know, is rich, or any of these basketball players or football players are getting these checks are very rich. They're not wealthy. Wealthy is the one who's writing those checks.
Right, right.
You know what I'm saying? Wealthy is the one who's paying 20 players $100 million for 10 years. That's the wealthy one, not the one to get that. So it's a significant big difference. And then when you get on our spectrum, now you're poor but then we had West Dallas, which was a opposite side of Oak Cliff, and that's the project. So there was now a way to determine between what you had and what they had. And then the project became that center of conversation growing up where the real poor people stayed. So, there was a lot of
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah. Well, hey, I was in that too till I was probably. Yeah, we lived in the projects. I think probably till I was like about 9 or 10 years old. So you were real little when we moved out of there.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
we was in that. We were in that. At least I was for a while. So for real, for real.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the UFO your journey with this. So because this you're doing something that is definitely taboo. Because I know we even
Mhm.
had a discussion just what was it about a month ago that you had a book about UFOs and our mom reacted to that. But
Oh my God. Yeah.
she's not unlike many people in our communities when it comes to thinking and talking about UFOs. So how did you even get like brave enough to even like first of all talk about it and then like say, hey, I'm a ufologist.
Well, it began, like I say, everything, and then between all of us, brother, that's going to start with curiosity, right? And sometimes even people that's watching us right now, and we'll bring some of these things up or feeling disconnected, not belonging, and all these things. And you have to find your way. But for me, like I said, it started when I saw the UFO when I was 12. Then, of course, you're growing into this thing. You like the magazines. You begin to like the TV shows, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, E.T. Phone Home. So all of these things begin the curiosity. And I didn't really look back, like I said, the significance of the moment of seeing one until I was in my 20s. Then you started being able to watch the different shows and even more. Oh, maybe I can get a little magazine off the magazine rack. But all in my mind, you felt, or I felt, there was more to be out there. You look up to the stars and you begin to ask that question, could there be something else out there? Now, once again, you can't stray too far off the reservation. I couldn't because you still had the teachings that mom embedded into me, not knowing that I was carrying this inside of me, right? So that kept that place where you just can't cross over that threshold. But in my 20s, and then of course, I had a lot of life events. I was shot when I was 20. And then again in 30, I was given 24 hours to live, from that operation, so there was a lot of near-death experiences and things that I can go back and encounter that there was a lot of significantly different things. Now, it even getting a little bigger today because I had my first child when I was 20 years old. And I remember at the time, the mother, of my children, had this rare blood type, and she would have to go get shots so that the fetus survive. And we definitely need to get on that a little later. So y'all just put that to the sideboard, remind Reggie to remind me or whatever is significant in the story later. But the whole point, it just evolved. The curiosity evolved as you get older. Now I'm a full-grown adult. I can do whatever I want to do. And so now I can watch the things that I want to watch. And so it just began down that road, not knowing that I was going to end up or my new beginning where I'm at today. And so becoming a ufologist, and there's a story behind that. So we can get into all of that, right? You just tell me where you want to go because we got it.
Yeah, I was just you can just flow with it. So
Okay.
tell me, so with as far as did you ever have a struggle between your religious beliefs and your beliefs that there might could be aliens or anything like that? Did you ever have that struggle?
Well, you know me, my background of all the things that I did as a youth, right? So there was
Hmm.
the religious handcuffs. I had the keys. I took them off when I wanted to. So it was more or less of trying to understand things, right? Because, for example, our mother will tell us, even today, people still do it, where you thinking the gold is in heaven. You're not going to get it here. Just work hard, stay alive until you get to heaven.
Hmm.
And then but you see other families and people prospering.
Hmm.
Then you have, of course, that I had an aunt that came in from out of town. I forget her name, and I will never forget as a young person. And this really was one of the altering moments. She came out of California, one of our aunts, and she was in a car, and she was like, I was in the back seat, and she said, "Ooh, wee," and she was like, "Man," she said, "there's a church on every corner." She said, "Boy, if you go to hell in Dallas, it's your own fault." So I was like, "Damn, right?" So now we got a church, right there on the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Church Houston's right here up and going to the store.
Yep.
Then a church on Ewing, 3 or 4 going to school, getting on school.
I say, well, you can go in any direction, 5 blocks.
Church
you're
back
gonna hit
this
2
way,
churches, any direction.
any direction. And so now you begin to say, okay, wait a minute. I'm not really feeling this church thing. I'm forced to do it right now because I'm going back to the youth. But then now becoming an adult, I just wasn't interested in going into the church. Now, reason for this was I'm at this time on the streets doing my thing. And I will see people prospering. And that's when I started going, wait a minute, how is this person over here? And of course, I wasn't a killer like some of these crazies, but some of these people was doing some hideous crimes, but yet they driving the nicest cars, right? They are living really cool. They got stack of cash this big. Now I'm over here saying Jesus, 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 and Jesus is saying, I don't have enough money for you. Probably. I don't you know what I'm saying? Or Jesus, you having these conversations now, right? You are trying to talk to Jesus, right?
Seems like some people was getting their prayers answered, but you wasn't getting yours answered.
Like, Jesus, hey, whoa. You building little microphones. Jesus, can you hear me? You got your own little telescopes. You try to see Jesus, or you asking other people, you see Jesus this morning? Yeah, where? Because his ass ain't coming here. Excuse my French. But the whole point is, you begin to ask yourself, what have I done, and what sins that I have done?
Yep.
That has not allowed me to feel, see Jesus like everyone else.
Yep. Why am I being punished?
That takes you on a spiral. That will take you down a road where a lot of people go. And even, as you know, our mom in some of the horror stories there, but even the ones that have fallen, they take it literally. If Jesus, them disconnect, life itself is not worth living, right?
No, I think our mother dealt with a lot of psychological issues for that very reason. That she was wondering, what is it that she was doing wrong? She had to be doing something wrong.
Had to be doing something.
Her life was not going like she wanted it to go.
And most people are like that today, right? Yeah. And so, and it's a transition there. And so, but now for me, now I'm still curious to something that we're not alone in the universe. And then I remember being married to where it all started changing. My second wife, the she-wolf. I'm gonna just give her that title. And for those you want to know, some days she was a she, and other days she was a wolf. So the she-wolf, she was kind of new into religion. And so that was always this thing in the house of me watching like Ancient Aliens or some of the shows. And then of course she had 3 cubs. Oh my God. Well, I was just the best though. Anyway, I can look back on, I can laugh, but I loved her, I love, the girl. But the whole point was, you're still having these thoughts and feelings of yourself. Now, I've been an entrepreneur, so I've probably done more things than more people under the sun. And if it could be made, money could be made from it, I'm in it, right? If it's a hustle to be made, I'm doing it, or, I'm skating the gray areas of it all, making sure, okay, longest. And to me now, this line has moved from black, not to white, but now it's gray. I got a gray lifestyle. As long as you ain't getting caught, obviously it ain't much no trouble. Then you start thinking, and you start trying to use some of the scriptures, Reggie. I'm trying to use them to my advantage. Like, well, if he doesn't know, then God can't punish me. I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm doing is bad, so I can't be punished for it, right? Not if the Bible slaps you and says, thou should not do this. Now you got to go be afraid. And I think that is that pivotal moment in most people's lives. And if you could keep that out of your life and begin to live internally from your intuition and all those things that you taught and talk about all that, then I think people could begin to take off the veil or shield themselves from a doctrine that was written for control. So, but anyway, I think for me, then I'm start venturing down the UFO road. I'm getting more and more at night, the energy, the feeling that something is more. I'm more connected to some things, but I still didn't answer the message, or when I say this, or begin to say, okay, this is what you're going to step into. Now, I'm watching all these motivational speakers. I'm watching, network marketing, MLM. You know that all of this stuff is you're trying to build the dream. You're trying to follow the 10-step to success, or the 3 steps to success, or the other part on the other side of the fence: pray, repent, and go to heaven and get your kingdom, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and I ain't never had nobody come back and tell me what size their mansion was, right?
Their heavenly mansion.
Yeah, ain't nobody came back and said, man, you can't wait to get here. So now you would think 100 people come back and say, man, don't go there. Who knows? But the whole point is, it's still that story that there's no evidence for people to come back and say, now, of course, we know it now in regression and past lives and all of that. We can get into that. I'm now open to all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole point now is you have to then begin to deal with what you're dealing with yourself. And so for me, I don't mind. I don't care about telling people my past, because what happens is it helps some people to know. And when they hear my story and where I'm going and becoming and all these things, it can happen for any of us, right? And so,
right,
on the streets, I'm, almost kingpin status on the street with drugs.
I'll talk a little bit about that.
Well, I got a scholarship. I played football. Got a full scholarship to the University of Kansas playing football. Went there for the summer. At this time, our brother Roy was in SMU doing what he was doing. And of course, at this time, not knowing, but what I can look back today, he was really, really hit really hard, brainwashed, I would call it. But that's just him. I'm not going to down him. But, he just didn't see family, right? He showed himself for that. And I remember being on the college campus, and, my mom, she was like, mom didn't have money to be sending us. And if she was going to Western Union $20, it cost 10, and you talking half of your money gone when you get it. And I remember on the phone talking to Roy, and he was in California, and I was like, hey man, I need $30. Just send me something. And I made the comment, man, I love you. And he's like, you don't love me. I'm not sending you no money. Well, that was a little trauma for me. And then at this time, being in a place where I couldn't really take care of myself, but I was at a school that was 30,000 white people and maybe 500 black people on campus. So if you saw us together, it was a cluster, or in the football program. Mm-hmm. But every semester, there was always these suicides constantly. And it wasn't black people, it was white people. And you hear the story, such and such got a D- in calculus or whatever, and he jumped, or such. And I'm like, what? And that was the biggest eye opener of strength, of understanding pressure. Because here it is, I'm going to school, I'm trying to get $30. You killing yourself over a D-. My mom would have said, great job, try harder, right? So it's like, then you understand there was a different perspective, and people's lives were different. So now I got firsthand racism. I got firsthand, wearing the same stuff. Oh yeah, I play football, so you do get some good food when you're doing it. But then the same coach that came in mom's house telling mom, I'm gonna take care of him, it's the same coach telling me, if you don't run your sugar honey iced tea, I'm gonna send you home. Or you don't do this, you're not gonna get no scholarship. You're not, different story of them walking into the house giving that, oh, your son is magnificent, blah, 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 right? And so at this point, I vowed at that moment that, okay, we got to do something about this. And then I come back home, and my children's mother, I'll never forget the story, cheated on me. And I really thank her, because, boy, it sent me into motion. She cheated on me with this guy. His father owned a funeral home. And he had money. He was an heir apparent to, and today he's really wealthy. He does so. Thank his dad, whatever you want to do. But obviously, it was enough for him to get my girl to cheat on me, and I was so freaking mad. Oh my God, was I mad? And I was rattlesnake mad, pit bull mad. I'm talking gorilla King Kong mad. But I found out it was about the money because he was able to give her $50 and stuff, and I was like, it won't never be another day that I'm not going to win the game if it's going to come down to the dollar. We're not going to win. So that was really, and it was a turning moment. And I asked her, I said, well, why did you go with this dude? He owns his own business. I'll never forget. She said he owns his own business. And I said, well, I could do that. And boy, have I done it. And I thank her today because sometimes we got to go through and you look at those traumas and those incidents could be the driving forces, because in the universe now, we know nothing just happens. It's divine intelligence. All this stuff is working. And now I didn't know it then, but now I look back on it like, oh, thank God for you cheating, girl. If you had
what happened? So when that happened, what did you do? What did that drive you to do?
It drove me to say, and I was in college. I did not go back, right?
I remember that.
I was out for the summer. I did not go back. I hit the streets and I said, I'm going to make some money. Now, at this point, I'm out here. I had a friend at this time. He was pretty, he was my friend's brother, younger brother. He was real good on the street, or at that time he was selling drugs. And I used to just hang out with them and just kind of learning. But I never was a person, and even to this day, I never have been drunk in my life. Never smoked a joint in my life, never smoked cigarettes, none of that stuff. Now, I could tell you I can sell you any and all things. And so I took an intelligent approach to that because in all these little components, because I remember the newspaper did an article on me my senior year, and they had me sitting there and they said, his name is Cuckoo, it's the headlines, but he's quite intelligent. So you adapt these things. And so when I hit the streets, I started to working, little streets. Then I start working and I end up getting a job.
Oh, you say hit the streets. What do you mean hit the streets? What does that mean?
When I hit the streets, I'm talking now, we Nino Brown, baby. You know what I'm saying? We selling drugs. Yeah, selling drugs, buying it over here, not knowing that you're in doing a corporation, right? A lot of these kids don't know. And I figured it out later, and then I applied those principles in which beefed up.
I remember telling you that one day how what business you had some great business skills doing what you were doing.
Yeah, because you was like, man, do you know you got, because you was trying to, at that time he was trying to get me to do Amway, and he was like, but you got this. You know what I'm saying? He had all these posters of, this, you can hit this, and and he used to sell me the dream of, you see this house and all of this, blah blah blah. And what I end up learning later was when the next person was like, hey, you see this house? I'm like, yeah. You see this car? Yeah. If you keep working the way you do, you keep working all of these little hours, it's gonna all be mine. I'll be like, oh, okay, no problem. And so, but anyway, I ended up at this point starting little small time, $10 rocks here, little stuff. And then at this point, things start picking up. Now, my friend's brother was killed right on the street, and you begin like, okay, what are you going to do from here? And then at this time, if you ever remember the Carter High School kids, they was robbing grocery stores at that time. So, and we all was our freshman year, and I almost got caught up. And I never told that story, and probably insignificant today. But the whole point was, I came home one thing, and I was in a car with one of them. We was in mom's blue car. They was like, hey man, take us over here to the store. I did not know what was going on, and they went in and robbed Aberson's. And I'm terrified. So I go back. And then at this point, this is when I went back to college. That next day I was flying back to where I went to school, and the detective came, and then the coach was like, no, he's in Kansas or whatever. But these guys all went to prison. And I dodged that bullet. And like I said, I didn't know. They just went into the store and just told me to sit outside, and they come running out. And I'm like, what the heck?
For the people who don't know, this was the back in the 80s. These Carter football players, they all were in this robbery ring. They ended up winning the state football championship. Got it stripped because of all of them that got caught. But man, that was a deal. So I mean, that was your life, and you were doing pretty well with that, right?
Yeah, I was doing real well. I mean, I was making ends meet. My kid was called C Money, my little young child at the time, and she even had her own security. And where this happened was that, so I was at one Saturday afternoon. I was at in me and not the she-wolf, but hey, well, my children's mother, and we had just broken up. And I went over to Pep Boys at the car wash, and two guys come up. And somebody said, "Hey man, you got change for $10?" Now I'm at the car wash, and so I'm from the street. My spider senses is on point, and so I was like, "Who comes to the car wash without change?" I mean, you know what I'm saying? Deliberately, right? At least you got a few ones from the coin machine, whatever. But really, it was checking me out. At that time, Mom and I was having a lot of disagreements about me carrying my gun. I had got my first pistol, and it was a little Bryco I got from Traders Village, and so I'm carrying my little gun. I remember it was $119 silver. And I remember getting right before that, the guy came up and he said, "Hey, you got change for a 10?" I was like, "No." And then he turned around. So by this time I'm in this car and I'm reading a cellular phone brochure. And this is how life really works. So I'm reading a cellular phone brochure with my legs sitting out this door. I'm sitting here with the passenger side open, but I'm trying to keep my eye on him. So he comes back and walk. It was two, but he comes back. So I said, "Well, let me get this gun," because me and Mom used to argue about it. I just tell her how dangerous it is on the streets. And I'm talking just a week prior to that. So I pick it up and I had it in my hand and I had this brochure like this. And he walks right in front of the car and he turned. And by this time I knew he was turning. I put my gun out the window and he turned, and then he shot. We both shot. And all I heard him say, "Hey man, I've been hit, come and get him." So I'm like, "Oh God, this is it." So the bullet hit, come out my spine. So my whole side is paralyzed for a minute. I'm dragging out this car. And this is life and death. This is it. This is what I do on the street. I'm carrying this old Ice Cube mentality. If I'm gonna go, I'm gonna go out with a bang. And oh, how crazy it was, right? But I got the courage, right? I don't care. This is home. This is me and them. So I get back onto the other side of this car, and he goes the other way. And then I see some people, because by this time it ain't like the John Wayne. It is not like the movies. You get hit. I'm still being a hero. We're gonna kill the bad guys, and then at the end you're gonna be like, "What happened?" Man, them bullets hurt. Them boogers hurt.
Right.
When the shock hit first, and I was like, "That's strange." But then when your body and them come together and have that conversation that you just been shot, and then they sound the alarm over the rest of your body that now your kidney just got blew out of there and all of this stuff, it hurts. It hurts. It really hurts. And so I'm sitting here at this time knowing I need a medic. And so I'm going over to this guy and his girl. They seen it. They got this clutch. They trying to drive, and so I point the gun in his face. It was already empty. It don't hold like 3 bullets. He didn't know it. I said, "Man, it's a phone in my car." Because by this time I'm balling. I got my little bag phone, my little cell phone. I got my Cavalier inspired by my brother. He had a Cavalier, so I get me a red Cavalier. You remember I had a red Cavalier just like you. So he's been inspiring me all this time, right? So I got my red Cavalier, but this time I put a little rims on it, and I changed the rims like every few weeks because I got an auto ring running at the same time. So we get tires and tires. And so I'm like, okay, cool. I'm good. And I remember the ambulance coming, and I knew I was dying because at this point I started getting real sleepy, and the guy kept slapping me. He's like, "Man, you got to stay awake." Now, at the exact same time, I don't know if you knew this, Chantel was being rushed to the same hospital. They didn't know what was wrong with her or whatever. We arrived at the same time.
That was
right?
your daughter.
My daughter. We arrived at the same time. And at this point, I had a Sterling. I didn't get the Cavalier until after with the lady that worked at TI. That was a whole nother story. But anyway, they was trying to get my car. I had a white Sterling with these rims on it. And But anyway, my daughter was there at the same time, and I remember them, and I had a Malcolm X shirt on with all these little X's, and they was like, "Hey, man, you know, I'm laying there," and they kept saying, "We need permission to operate." And I just looked up, and I said, "Sure, you can." They all bust out laughing. I lay back down, and I remember waking up, and I said, it was all white. I said, "Damn, you know, messed up and died." And I'm sitting, true story, I'm sitting here like, but what it was, they had my face covered. And then when you're out in operation, it's those 600 watt bulbs, right? And so I'm like, I done died. And so then I really started dying because I was on a ventilator. And this thing was pulling my air, and I'm trying to breathe. They got me strapped to the bed, and we'll know why in a minute. So they got me strapped to this bed, and I'm struggling. And all I feel was somebody put their hand on my chest, and that's all I felt. And at that time, I'm spiritual now because I done died. I'm like, what? And I hear her voice. She says, "Listen to it." And I was like, huh? And what she was telling me was listen to the ventilator because it's breathing for you. So if you're trying to get air while it's trying to suck it out, ain't nothing you gonna do. It's and then you trying to breathe, it's pushing it in. And she said, just listen to it. And then that's when I relaxed and started listening to the ventilator. Well, later on, the next time I wake up, I'm in the hospital. I'm handcuffed to the bed, which you already knew. And I remember the police said, "Hey, we got something to tell you." And you were the only one there at that moment. I said, "No, he can stay." You know, and that's when they told me the guy died, right? You remember? And it was like, yeah, he died. And he was like, but we caught the other little boy, and he went on and told his mother what happened. And if you charge him, don't charge him, but use him as your witness, then we know it's self-defense regardless. So they then took the handcuffs off. And by this time, you couldn't find me in the hospital. They had me listed as Mr. X because what they didn't want was whoever knew the family to retaliate against, you know, whatever. Now, 5, 10, 15 years later, and then we'll get really into some stuff. I'm playing dominoes at a friend of my house named DC. We haven't seen each other in a while. And I tell him about me being shot. He said, "Yeah, we heard about that." And then we still talking. His wife is in the kitchen cooking right over the counter. And then, but by this time, I knew who the guy was. They end up telling me his name. Okay. And I said, "Yeah, his name is Brian Washington." And he stopped. She drops the plate. And he said, "Man, that was my little brother you killed." And I was like, "Oh, shoot. Oh, this is going to get real." And you're talking just not an awkward moment, not an awkward moment, but a moment. And
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And you like, okay, this is my boy, but he said I just done killed his brother. I'm in.
So he had no idea of who shot him?
No, because remember, they had my record sealed. Remember, if you came to the hospital, nobody could find me. They didn't know where I was. So the police do a good job. They sealed all of my medical records. Even my name on every paperwork was Mr. X. You know, even family calling, you wouldn't even know when I was there.
Gotcha.
Because they did it for protection, right? And so he was saying, then I'm like, okay, I'm kind of retired, but I got 2 bullets in the car. One for one for both of them. Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. I've still got the mentality, right? So I'm like, this ain't gonna go well. And he stops, he had a tear in his eye, and he says, "Man, we've been looking for you." I'm like, oh shit, this is gonna get real. He said, our whole family been looking for you. I'm like, oh shit, I need bag up. You right?
Right.
Bag up now. I'm gonna call the swimming ducks, the street Navy SEALs, because I'm connected. I'm gonna call. We can really go to war, baby. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
He goes, "We've been looking for you because we wanted to apologize, and they would never tell us who you was." I'm like, really?
Right. Right.
Because then I realized I didn't have my gun on me anyway. I was in trouble.
Right.
So I'm like, and I'm a little bigger than I was coming up running a 4.5 40. So this would have been a short sprint. All the X's was covered. You know, I'm like this. I'm checking it out, like 007, right?
Right.
So I was like, okay. And then he said, "Man, early that day, that boy shot 3 other people. He was doing a shooting spree." Wow. And he had already shot 3 people earlier that day. So I was destined to be shot. Okay. I mean, it was going down. He was going to be number 4, or was number 4. And so he said that what happened was when I shot back, and I remember telling the police, remember in the bed, I said, I think I hit him. And remember, the police was like, yeah, you hit him. He died. And I was like, what? And then, so he said what happened, he went home, and this is what the police said. Instead of, when the ambulance came, he was hiding in those bushes, and he went home and he bled to death. The other one went home and told his mother. And he would in the DC was like, man, this was blah 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 blah. And I was like, man, I'm sorry. He said, no, man, this dude was on a rampage, and you probably stopped him or whatever. And so now I'm not thinking I'm a hero because I only got shot. My left kid, it didn't hurt. But at this point, who knows, right? And you don't know what the universe is going to pay you for today, right? For things that you might have done, you don't even know it, or people you helped. And so at this point, that was the first. And then this is when my street power blew out of control, because the rumor had it now you have killed someone. And anything like that on the street just builds you up. I didn't have problem finding workers. I didn't have no problem somebody turning over their territory, the whole 9 yards, because I've shown the ability that it's not a rumor, this can go down, right? And so not knowing the power of influence, in which I use it today positively, of what I do with my messaging of questioning and influence, whether on the street, whether it's in your business, whether in your life, is a powerful tool. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so at this point, the influence was heightened. And then now I got this thing going, and I never forget, I began to get really intelligent. I started doing what I call business hours. I had these little street corners in our neighborhood, and, people, Fridays, they knew that, I'm not going to be in the spot, and I wasn't there. Now all along, I'm still, you still got this higher energy of being different and feeling different, or maybe we're not alone. And so I'm still a fan of the UFO stuff and all of these things. But then at this point, like I said, things grew. The street thing, that's when the business sense comes in, because like you was telling me, hey man, you running an empire, you got distribution, and you was like, man, you buying wholesale, selling retail, you got outlets and all that. I'm like, I do, don't I? And so I took what you said, business, and I actually applied business to what I was doing. And developed this thing. And I'll never forget, when I was at that point, I still was driven by my baby mother cheating on me. And I remember I'm selling drugs, but I wanted to own a business, because she said that's what she dreamed of. Now at this time we gone. And so, I'm still taking care of the kid. Now we were still together a little bit, but then at this point I ended up opening up my first beauty shop, my first business.
Yeah, I remember helping you scrape the floor up.
Yeah, and I'm spending every dollar. I'm racing to get off the street, because I know they're closing in, because some of my guys are getting popped. But, I always stayed distant. I had people work for me. I would drive by. They would look at me like I'm crazy. They don't even know this is my thing, right? But that's how disconnected I was on purpose. At that time, we had police scanners, and we would listen to the radio, and I remember the biggest day that I would probably have spent, I don't know, 50 years in prison. I was sitting there, and we had the DART buses that come down that street in our neighborhood, right, on Ewan. And one of my places, my main money makers, was right there. And I remember this guy sitting on this telephone pole, and I drove up, and at that time I had security, my own people. They come first, then I come. And then it was like, I said, well, how long has this dude been up here? And he been out there a while. Now I'm the one like, come on guys, y'all got to be smart in this, right? And I'm proud to say, all of my people that were working under me, all of them became big kingpins later when I retired. Some went to prison, but today they're good citizens, and they now have legitimate businesses, because that was what I preached the whole time, right? And so I was like, listen, this dude has been up here. And then, don't y'all find it odd? The buses are turning on Fernwood, which is where we live. There ain't no bus ever turn on Fernwood, right? So the ones that was coming would turn, and the ones that was this way was kept going. So obviously, it was about to be a raid, and they're letting the bus line don't come, because there was guns there, right?
Right.
And I'm looking and like, dude, this is not right. So I give the signal, shut it down, let's roll. And I get up to the top of this hill and they hit everything. And I remember I'm laying on the ground at the top and life was going to be done, you know, because they caught, I don't know who this guy was until later. He walks up in his mask and he kicks me. Hey, dude, you get up, get the hell out of here. And I'm like, what the hell? Okay. And I leave. Now, then you would have never caught me with any drugs at all because I never carried nothing, touched anything. I paid more people more money to do anything I wouldn't do. I just mentally was running stuff. But he was like, get up and go. And later on, about 10, 15 years later, it was somebody I knew. He was undercover, you know. And he was like, man, I just told you to get up. I'm like, dude, I owe you. He's like, oh, you don't owe me. I said, why not? He said, oh, we got a whole lot of stuff down there. I was like, okay, whatever. But anyway, we'll move on to the other part. But from that part of life, which most people have probably dealt with, and I own my stories today. And because it is a lot of experience, because what that did was give me two things, because I had two children. One was tremendously, had a lot of book sense, and Shayla, my one, got a lot of common sense, right? And I've learned this today because Shayla's book sense, I mean, common sense is, I call her the fox. And I just saw a Facebook post. She was like, yeah, my dad used to call me the fox. I'm like, yeah. And she used to always try to run circles around the, you know, I'm like, dude, I taught you what you know, not, you know, everything I know. Why?
Right.
Circles, right. Well, Chantel was more the books. And Chantel would be, if a bear showed up in front of her, she will look it up on the dictionary, bear. They're big, grizzly. Oh, if you come in front of a bear, run. Shayla will be like, I don't know what that is. You know what I'm saying? It just don't feel right. And that's the way I was, but then I carried a little both in my life. And that allowed me to become a better communicator, because at this time people were like, you got the gift of gab. Now I tell them I'm a professional speaker, you know. And so you grow up in all of that, man. And so that's part of the history. And then later on, I was taken to the hospital when I had an intestinal blockage, and they gave me like 24 hours to live. And I remember mom coming in there and they was getting ready to take me to surgery. And the lady was like, you know, you might not come back. Do you want to tell your family? Like, I think a lot of y'all was showing up, and I was like, don't tell none of them that I may not come back. They're praying people, you know. And I was like, okay. But they came and got me early. And when I came back, this is how mom got ticked off, because the chaplain came in and to give me my final passage right. And I went off on her and I said, look, I don't know who told you to come here at 12, whatever, but they picked my ass up 2 hours ago, and you need to start working off the spirit and not the clock. Mom, they're like, what's going on? I'm like, so don't even come in here 5 minutes before I got to go anyway. You could have gave me more time than that anyway, right? I'm talking now. I'm doing the spiritual side, right? The religious side. And so now, having said all of those things, then I knew it was time to step off the reservation of Christianity. I knew that my life had a lot of things coming and going because I've done so much, and I only told y'all a portion of the trials and tribulations. I got a lot more. We're not getting into all that, but the whole point of this is you do know that at this point you're going to do something special. You just don't know what it is, but you begin to try to discover yourself. Now, I've always had you to turn to, but at that time you were pretty much at this point saying, hey, the Bible, right? Ain't it? And of course, I'm not really hearing that because I'm on the street anyway. So I got mom on one side saying it is, and on the other side you saying it ain't. I'm just in the middle, like, okay, all right. And then you got Uncle Boo at the time, bless his soul, who's gone, transitioned to his spirit world. Was Kemet, he was like, Black Power, and I'm like, I don't know who the power is. This is a struggle out here. I'm trying to just make some money. I don't care. I don't care about being part of the Black Panther. It's not, at this time, I got issues. My issues got issues, I can get killed out on the street, all of this stuff. And I remember going to jail, and they had $10,000s of dollars, and the police took my money and they was charging me for a gun charge. And the judge was like, "You carrying this gun?" And I'm like, "Hey, you see my record? I've been shot." "Yeah." "Well, I'd rather be charged. It's a misdemeanor." He's like, "Yeah." "Well, I'd rather get charged with a misdemeanor by you instead of sentenced to death on the street without it." He was like, "Drop the charges. Get this dude out of here." You know what I'm saying? I'm like, dude, it's hard out there. But anyway, so now we're now getting into UFOs. We're now, at that time I had an exotic animal pet store. I'm selling birds, and not birds of drugs, but actual parrots, and I'm shipping them all over the world. Monkeys, little tiger babies, foxes. I got all this stuff. I'm getting, because now my game of distribution has grown. I got access to a lot of stuff. So I'm making good money there. And then, like I said, I'm watching TV, and at this time I'm married to the Shiwa, which you know what I'm talking about. And I told her one day, I said, "Look, there's no black people on TV talking about UFOs. Why we don't hear our story?" Now, I didn't know what I was saying then, what I was speaking into existence, right?
Why did that seem odd to you?
Because I'm a fan. And when I started going to that, I was past the point for a moment, like, wait a minute, and I had made the discovery that we're going to talk about here of how it's more taboo in our community. I didn't know that yet. I just knew that I didn't see me, or I didn't see the stories. And then I'm like, I know it happened because I seen a UFO. I know I'm not the only one, right? Now, I haven't had the experience that some people have of abduction or contact experience, but I'm in the doorway. I saw this thing in the sky. It was a UFO, plainly. And so I'm sitting here and I'm talking to the she-wolf, and I'm like, "Listen, this," and she's going off like, "Whatever, dude, blah, blah, blah." And this is when I knew our relationship was really going downhill, because she no longer had respect for me, right? And anybody that's in a relationship, when you have to stand here and say, "I'm the man of this house," you're not the man of the house. Believe that.
Right.
So I did that 2 times, and then I started really realizing. So, our issues had issues, but then again, I had 3 stepsons, and they used to sit next to me. We watching these shows, and she would get mad. "Don't show my children no alien stuff." And they was intrigued, just like I was.
Mm-hmm.
Then we got to the bed. You know how you leave the TV on, you go to sleep, and all of a sudden, you just like, you come back home, come back in, it's frozen on that. So she know I've been up all night watching this stuff. And there she is again. And so I remember I was going to give up and not even do this, because I'm like, I had my little books. And at this time I had MUFON. I saw MUFON. I know what was happening now, but I found one of their little websites. And then I was on the internet, and I was like, man, everywhere I go, I'm seeing MUFON. Now I know it's retargeting, it's the retargeting cookie on your computer, right? Because I do business. But then I didn't know I was being retargeted, right, by the cookie. And so I'm like, they're everywhere. So maybe I need to call them, So I ended up in Dallas. They was going to have their first meeting, and I was like, okay, I'm going. And I prepped the she-wolf, and I said, hey, we down on one car, but if you come home Sunday from church, because this is time now, she's going to church by herself with her sister, and at this church with like 6 people. And at this time, I tried to tell her that I figured it out, that 2 or more people is a congregation. And if I can pay tithes to my house, which is my church, that should work. The formula works. She didn't buy it, right? So, because this is where I'm going. I'm like, look, it's 6 of us in this house. So that's a congregation, okay? And I can pay tithes to the house. This is our church. It makes sense to me. It made a lot of sense.
Right.
Not to her, right? She wanted to go get this guy with his 6 people in the church because he had a building, our money. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, nah, hold on a minute.
So with the UFO, you were saying that the kids and stuff are watching the UFOs.
They watching the UFOs, and then they're into it. And so at this point, I decided to tell her that I'm going to go to this meeting, and this is where it all changed. I came home. It was a Sunday. I worked 7 days a week. And anybody know me, I work 24/7, 12, 365 plus OT, period. Flea markets, you name it, it didn't matter. I'm hustling every day. And so I'm like, okay, I came to the house and I woke up that morning. We had one car because my Mercedes at that time went down. It had these air shocks. And so I was like, hey, I can't wait till you come back from church. So, and I know it'll be over. That they'll probably have about another hour left when I get there, but I will get to meet somebody I could talk to about a UFO. So she was like, okay. Well, then when she called, I heard this dishes in the background. I was like, where are you? Well, me and my sister went out to dinner. And at this moment, it was beyond that I knew I wasn't a man of the house. Now I'm being disrespected. And this is how no domestic violence happens, right? Because we get these buttons pushed. Now, I didn't put my hands on, I never did. But I knew at that moment I wanted to, now nobody on the street would have ever done this to me, right? I would have never been blatantly disrespected on the street. But in my house, I am. And I'm paying the bills royally, by the way. So I'm like, listen, where you at? Well, I didn't want you to go. Now I'm stabbing myself. You telling me I can't go? I can't go. You know what I'm saying? Like, who does that? So I am ticked off to the highest of ticktivity, if that's a word. And I'm like, when you get home, it's going to get real. Okay. And so at this point, I come down because we start going to counseling. And he told me, dude, this ain't going to work for you. What are you doing? And I go to the doctor and he's like, you stressed out. What's happening at your house? You're going to get killed over stress. And so we separated. And this is when I got introduced to Clubhouse. And she's the one, and we still kind of messing around a little bit. And I remember asking her, she said, you can go to this place called Clubhouse and you can talk to people about UFOs. And I was like, okay. And at that time I was going to do a club called MLM because, I'm still into the MLM. But this time I'm ticked off. So it was going to be MLM, but it was an acronym for money, lies, and manipulation. I was going to just spill the beans. Right. But I ended up starting a club called Extraterrestrial Evidence, and she started her club, and today is now 30-some thousand, and hers is 6 people. Boy, that number 6 rings for her. But the whole point was, I then was on Clubhouse. I came into it. I started talking to people about UFOs. I did what I call a more infotainment. A lot of people were just talking factual. And there was a knock on me, like, you don't know this and know that, but it wasn't about knowing. It's about communicating. And I've already had the skills to communicate with anybody. So it wasn't no deal of me meeting strangers. I never met a stranger, no matter where I go. Okay. And so it was like, all right, I'm going to start talking. And then when I started realizing that people were having these issues, but because Clubhouse, you can get up on the stage, but it wasn't African-American people. No black people was up talking. I had whites, Hispanics, and everything. I'm like, where's the brothers? What's really happening? And so then I started realizing, wait a minute, this is kind of a taboo subject because I grew up in this thing, Christianity. And then at this point, the word started getting out. I started saying, hey, this is a safe place. You can come here. And then Clubhouse ran what they call a Creators First program where they was trying to make their creators, and 5,000 people submitted an application. I was one, and I gave them an audio of me, and it was real simple. I was like, I'll just give y'all. So I was like, all right, everyone, this is Roderick Martin, and we're going to talk about UFOs and blah, 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 blah. But anyway, that's how I was hitting it, right? I was hitting it hard, okay? They was like, hey, all right. So they gave me $1,000 budget, and they said I was one of the Creative First finalists, and I was the only black person there. It was a couple of blacks, but I'm talking about UFOs, and they had to sign you people at some point, but nobody would want to work with me. I don't want to talk with him about no aliens. So I was alone. So I had $1,000 budget to do a 2-hour show. And I was like, I'm going to call around and try to get people. And there was other clubs. I'm calling them, hey, because they got all these connections of people, all these people coming in on their show. But I'm a little more infotainment. I'm the brother talking about this. But I'm talking about it from the perspective of, hey, you know what? I'm into this thing, but if y'all, we're talking ghost and paranormal and all this stuff. And so eventually I was at the last moment. I was like, look, fine, I can't find anymore. And that's how I met Billy Carson. I called him and I got his number and he answered the phone. I told him who I was, what I was up against. He said, man, I got you. And I said, man, you can have the whole $1,000 budget. Just be my guest. And he laughed at me and I was like, damn, I don't have enough money. He said, man, I ain't going to take your money. I was like, oh, okay. And so by this time he connects me and I got Linda Moulton Howe. I got all these top people that's on TV, all on my show. And I got 2 hours. And I had Linda because I thought thinking she was the biggest name. Billy is like, no, I'm the headliner, and I'm unthinking, and I put him before her, and then he had phone trouble. And then she had to go up, and then his phone works at the end. So this thing turned into a 4-hour thing. I threw in the towel. I said, I'm not gonna win. And I was like, but this is the best day of my life, right? And this is my one moment. And it went 4.5 hours. And then some weeks later, I get the call. You have been chosen. We're going to give you a $30,000 contract. And I'm like, what? Seriously? And it's like, we're going to pay you $5,000 a month Clubhouse, right? And then he's like, we're going to get you show producers or whatever you can do. And at this same time, I get a phone call. I put and I think me and you was talking. I was talking about doing YouTube channel because I wanted to. And I remember I was telling you, I was like, man, you was like, man, I ain't worrying about this YouTube channel. I got $10 from this thing, 5,000 subscribers. Bro, I said, bro, turn it on. Now I got 1 subscriber. He talking about 5,000. Like, man, I ain't worrying about that. Well, I don't $20. It's $20. You know what I'm saying? And he was like, all right, I'll look into this YouTube thing, right? So finally I sit here and I'm like, okay. I put my first YouTube video up and I had a channel called Think Aviculture. If y'all go look at it there, but I had learned from this where I was going to take movie clips and then see what life lessons, play the clip, then say, this is how it plays in our life and all of these things. And I couldn't figure it. But the last part was doing a UFO. Right. And I'm like, oh no, it's a passion, but what do I say? And so I ended up doing my first UFO video and I had 100 views, 80 views. I get a phone call from this group of people and they say, hey, we saw you and we want you to be a host of one of our shows. I'm like, what? I thought I was being pranked. I remember it was a Tuesday. I said, call me back on Friday. So I'm figured they'll weed themselves out. And at this time, I used to go to the mall and I used to do body language and I used to sit and people watch. You get a lot of fun if y'all want to do that. I sit there and watch people walk in and I can tell by watching them who is in love, who's not, from body language. And it just became an art. And I used to just go when I ain't had nothing to do, just sit and watch. And so anyway, that'll be significant later. But the whole point was that I ended up getting this phone call. And then I used to tell the Shiwa that one day I'm going to give them something they never seen before. That's all my statement was forever. And I remember getting a phone call. They sat there and they was like, we want you to be part of our TV show. It was a Zoom call and it was 6 people and I only seen 2 of them. And I'm looking around like, whatever. And the lady says, Roderick, I need you to stop the camera. And I was like, what? Look into the camera. And I'm like, what? She said, this is real. You're going to be a star. I was like, what? She said, this is real. And I'm like, am I that transparent? She said, yes, you are. Because I'm like, I don't give a damn, whoever these people are, right? So at this point, when the thing was almost over and I said, hey, why did y'all pick me? Why? And the lady said these words, you're something we never seen before. And that's when I've always knew the power of manifestation. I've always practiced it. You know that. I manifest a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah. Hey, I've seen it. I've been a witness.
And it's so scary that it also have given me this other side, which is probably a hindrance, where I would work through things to see how they was going to turn out. And also sometimes making struggling a habit because I knew I will manifest out of it when I'm ready. It's almost like you exploring and you like, no, I'll just wait and then I'll manifest. And then, so that side was a problem because you believe in the magic so well. But then at the other time, you still struggling at times with different stuff. So anyway, she said, you're something we never seen before. So now at this point, I'm on Clubhouse. I'm getting that. And then I do my first TV show. And as you can see, I'm big for my age. So that was a problem because they was like, we're gonna put you on TV. And I'm like, that's gonna be 30 pounds more, be on TV. And but they says 8 months away. So I'm happy. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna lose 200 pounds. And I ended up gaining 20 more pounds before I went down there. So you can imagine the havoc on my mind at this point. But overall, and I'm gonna speed it up. Now we can get really into the crap of UFOs. I tell people, and I'll tell people right now that's watching. My message to you, first of all, one of them is you have to dream. You're gonna have to dream, but not these simple dreams. Okay, I'm talking dream like a fool. Okay, dream like a fool, like a crazy fool. A fool, like when somebody hear your dream, they say that dude or that woman is crazy. Because there's something about the cosmos, there's something about the energy of it and that frequency of that dream that the universe has to make it happen for you. I start realizing this. I start realizing that it wasn't about the lack of resources, the lack of money. That wasn't it. I had more people coming forward, hoping. It's almost like they were responsible to give me some assistance, right? They were responsible to make it less difficult for me. Somehow they just, the energy drew them into, and then that's when you start realizing you got a purpose. Because sometimes we're trying to figure out the purpose when you don't look at the path is the purpose, right? And you start trying to figure out that maybe I just need to just be here, and you begin to let it define itself. Because I know you want to manifest it, and I used to try to write down those things, but I started listening to people. It's like college, right? And you taught me this. You was like, man, college just teach you how to work for somebody, right? And so I never did go to college and anything. So I started making money. I was living in $200,000 or $300,000, $400,000 house in my 20s. I'm hustling. You know what I'm saying? I got a convertible Mercedes, and I got a ranch where I got goats, and then I got hay bales.
Man, I used to watch you put all of this stuff together in real estate. I remember you getting some computers, and these computers were like they couldn't do something with them. And you had to, and you figured out a way to where you hit a lick.
It was like 40 grand, 50 grand. It was like,
I remember, man, it was $57,000 that you made from selling those computers. Where somebody was like,
they was
like, here, man, just take them off my hand.
They was trashing them. I'm talking like, just take them off my hand. They trashed. I'm like, no, it's got to be something in this. And I'm looking at this stuff like, one man's I always grew up. One man's trash is another man's treasure. Even when it comes to a woman, they always look good when they belong to somebody else, right? So you got to be careful with that. So I'm sitting here, and I don't know why I said that. Don't y'all worry about that. Take that off the record. But the whole point is, I'm like, I know there's some value in this somewhere. So I'm on the phone weeks, but I wasn't giving it up. I was like, it's money in this. So I'm calling around, and then finally I see a picture of the same stuff. And I'm like, what? Okay, it's a server. What? And this company sells them. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna broker this deal. So I call this dude up, and he's like, where you get them from? I said, dude, he said, don't worry about that. I just said, well, listen, I got them from DISD. It was a school deal. They threw them out. And he was like, okay. And I told him, and then next thing you know, he's giving me $57,000 for the stuff. And I'm talking, I'm sitting here, and I'm like, for real? And by that time, now I'm like, I'm looking for the nest egg in anything that I do. It doesn't matter.
And I remember that kicked you off, man. That you were, I remember you getting into real estate, getting into all kinds of stuff, man.
And the real estate happened when I leased my first property, and I signed a lease with a trust. This dude, he had a trust, and something happened. I was trying to get my money back, and I went to an attorney, and he was like, man, this is a trust. You're not going to be able to fight. And I'm like, what is a trust? So by this time, okay, so this is the second part, because I had another dude that ripped me off, and I pulled him down, and I had my guys with me, and I was like, dude, this is not going to turn out good for you unless you teach me what you did. He's like, what? I'm smart. Teach me how you got over on me. How did I miss that? And when he taught me, I said, okay, now I can make some money with that, right? And So I would do real estate. I'd learn how to do trust from that guy. We went to court. I sat him down and I said, okay, you won this, but teach me. It was an old white dude. I said, teach me how to do trust because that worked really well. And he just like had respect for me. Like, really? Yeah. So he showed me the game. And I'm like, okay, then. So anyway, we got the UFO stuff. I'm in it. I'm in 9 different TV shows right now. You can find me, like you said earlier, on Discovery Channel. You can find me on, History Channel. One of the biggest parts was when I got the phone call for, Ancient Aliens, the one I used to binge watch on, one that the she
right.
And I got the check and I sent her this thing and she called, you got a check for Ancient Aliens. I said, how did you get that? I meant to send that to my brother. He's like crying, Amy, I didn't want to, I supported your dream. No, girl, you know what? Don't worry about all that. And then the second one happened, when the first wife, I was sitting there and my daughter went into hospital a couple of months ago and, her boyfriend was there. I walk in and he's sitting there staring at me and I'm like, dude, we can't do this here. My daughter's sitting here cramped up, about to have emergency surgery. The ex-wife is there. And so he looks at me, he's staring at me. So I said, well, calm down. So I reach over, hey man, what's up? He said, we met. I said, I know we have, but I'm thinking I have to reintroduce myself. And he looks at me and he looks at her and he says, this is the dude that I'll be talking about. I'll be watching him on TV. This who I be talking about. And I'm like, oh, you can't get no better than this. You cannot get no better than this. So I'm peacocking now. I'm you peacocking, right? You know what I'm saying? He's like, yeah, I watched this dude, blah, blah, blah. In fact, that's why I told you at 8 o'clock I was going to step outside because I was going to watch his show. But he was like, well, obviously he ain't doing it. He's here at the hospital. I'm like, yeah. I said, but you know what, dude? We here. Let's just do a show, me and you. He's like, what? He's sitting there just turning pink. She's black, but she's pink now. Like, he's like, what? But anyway, here we go. What I found.
So let's talk about so your experience and how you have like researched these UFOs. What do you do to go and research and find information? How does all of this happen? How do you become a ufologist?
All right. So MUFON, which is the Mutual UFO Network, which when me and the She-Wolf separated, I went on and got my certification. It's probably one of the best things I could do. And then to get around other people to start the conversations. They will take you through their university and they would give you a certification because they were only one of the accredited people that would do that. And so once I became a UFO investigator, I realized there was a term called ufologist, and that are people who study and talk about UFOs. So there was actually a term for it. So I was like, okay, that's cool. You have to begin to, all of this time I'm working on my brand and who I am. What am I standing for? What is that? Why am I here? Okay. And I've always had that curiosity, which is this word you see up here. My tagline of all my shows is question the narrative, right? You can't just go about what you see on the news and what's happening. So following that principle, which is the brand for my truth seekers community, I teach everyone, we have to question the narrative, right? Don't just listen to how things are happening. So when these UFO stories and all this stuff was coming out, everybody talk about how and what they saw. I was always going a step deeper is why, because how is never as important as why. And I don't think a lot of people look into the why of stuff, right? Because
when you're saying the why, what do you mean? Why what in particular? So,
so when you think about life, let's just say, for example, for those who are listening and you understand that the Bible, there's something in the Bible doesn't feel right. It's not adding up. It's not making any sense. And someone else may come to tell you, maybe you listen to my brother and he might give you that nugget of what's happening. But it's still up to you to get the curiosity to start asking why. Why did Reginald say this? Not what he said. Because if you go deeper to why he said it, you're going to grow. You're going to learn.
Right.
If you just listen to what, you just now if you listen to what, you just move from one puppet to the next, right?
Yep. And that's what a lot of people end up doing is just they just go, oh, that sounds great. That's great information, blah, 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 but
Yep.
never ever going like, okay, well, why is this? What happened here?
There you
why
go.
am I even getting it this way?
Why don't this story make freaking sense that we all two people came from Adam and Eve? Dude,
right.
If any of us bred our two people, two generations, the third one have missing fingers and left eyeballs. You know what I'm saying? I breed dogs to know that.
One leg, half legs,
and but nobody asked the question. But we were smart enough to not believe in Santa Claus when you was getting them broke toys, right? Because your parents are broke. You knew broke toys meant broke. Santa Claus, wait a minute, that's my broke parents.
Right.
We explored that. So you get to a point where we just couldn't go into that. So with me doing UFOs, I began to, why are they here? Where did they come from? But why are we feeling this way? Why am I getting all these stories? So by this time on Clubhouse, I had developed a trusted place where people start coming. And then I noticed a lot of African-American people will start coming their stories. And because Clubhouse was an audio, you can hide behind it. People felt comfortable of talking, but they knew they wasn't being seen. So they had a little bit of anonymity, doing what they're doing.
Why do you think African Americans have had such an issue with talking about this idea? Talking about even acknowledging UFOs and stuff like that?
Well, first of all, it's going to come down to social implications first. So we'll start there, where we have enough stuff to worry about, right? There's a lot of other things because you got to remember, we didn't have a problem or don't have a problem believing in ghosts, okay, or spirits, right? The spirit, spirits. But it's something about this interplanetary thing, or there's planets outside the universe. Now, why? Because the Bible talks about the universe, and the universe is about as small as it is here. All of the stories and miracles of Jesus and all these stuff is happening on the ground. So there can't be nothing else anywhere. It's absolute, right? There is nothing. Okay. So you have this doctrine embedded into you. It's no different than the elephant. When he's a baby, they tie the rope on his leg and he's pulling and pulling and pulling as a baby. They do this on purpose. But when he's a full-grown adult, one of the strongest things on the planet, he still feels the tug of that chain and think he can't break it, when he can just snap and break it now,
Right.
So the conditioning or unconditioning thoughts that we was having was there. And so then I started realizing that it was, this is where I started getting deep. I started to identify there were people on stage that's talking about, angels and demons. I literally started listening. I can identify the fact, the way you talked about UFOs, aliens, how you felt. I can just about pinpoint what your religious background was, because now we have some people think they were aliens, some people thought they was demons, some people, but they're all talking about the same thing. That's when I know, wait a minute, boy, this religious thing is it's on point.
And you really have to think about even the religious aspect of it too, because because really, like the church and the church, Catholic Church, all the churches, you really can't address aliens, because if you're saying that Adam and Eve was the first two parents and they sinned, and everybody else after them were sinners, and then they had to have this one miracle worker to like absolve of all their sins, then you can't talk about something outside of Adam and Eve. Because then it's like, wait a minute, did Jesus die for the sins of somebody, of these aliens? Were they born sinners too? And then you get into you open up a whole nother can of worms, where really the whole belief system and doctrine just like it falls apart,
Well,
so did Jesus, if there was somebody outside of Adam and Eve, they couldn't have been a born sinner. So therefore, you didn't even need Jesus to absolve them of their sins.
Okay, and I'll go a little deeper with that on a more, I like to bring it to that level down here, right? Because even myself, started to realize that I was getting blessed and I didn't go into the church. And that helped me. And a lot of you getting blessings and you ain't been to church. That should let you know. All those indicators should give you some examples that it may not be the church where God relies. Okay. And I started to understand that, you know, there's more out there. And so when I started doing the UFO stuff, now you're into what I call the high strangeness. I'm talking about life after death. I'm talking about, you know, paranormal. I'm talking about ghosts and freaking, you know, all of these things that people wouldn't have a conversation about. But then I noticed still within our community, I started noticing people that was married, and they would call and they would have an experience. They crying, men, full grown men crying, but they couldn't tell their spouse about seeing an orb or a UFO because it's unexplainable, right? They can't. The mind is not having comprehension of it because there's nothing to reference it to. It's just and so at this point, that's when I realized, and this is the true story, that most people, my brother, is religiously and emotionally bankrupt. Because it don't work. It didn't work. It didn't work for your mama, my mama, their mom, and that's all and now we're bankrupt. It's like what? But on the other side of this fence, they feel the energy of spirituality calling them, but because there's no guide, no map, until people like yourself is here giving them the indicators, they're feeling weird, disconnected, not understood, not belonging. And because they're in this wandering phase of this thing, right? And
well,
so
I think part of it too, brothers, that a lot of times with us as a people, we're dealing with self-esteem issues.
Yes.
You know, so if you're dealing with self-esteem issues, you don't want somebody to start to questioning your sanity. So if you bring up a UFO or something like that, or you start talking about something that they ain't never experienced,
yes,
the first thought that comes to their mind is, oh, you crazy. Or it comes to your mind, oh, they think I'm crazy. So that's hush hush.
Yeah, and so you use the word question. That's why you see my superpower word is question. I want people to question. You have to. Excuse me, you got to question the narrative, and then you got to look in the mirror and question yourself, right? If you're not willing to go on that journey and learn and begin to understand who you are, the power that you have within, and what you're connected to, okay, all of this stuff, and it's high strangeness. I know it gets there. And so what I started doing is talking to people. We start talking about UFOs. Now, mind you not, we're still having this issue in the Black African-American community. And I wasn't until I started trying to work on my first book that the deer in the headlights just hit. Like, wait a minute, why is this taboo? And we're going to talk about that. So when I started trying to do history, even in the ufology, remember I said there's none of these Black people on TV, none of these things. Then I couldn't figure out, it was not more of a social thing. Now we're talking about deeper things about it, society, right? And I was like, okay, all right, how do you do a UFO history? Well, you go back in history. So when I started looking into the history, trying to talk to people, and number one, the church, and then I started looking into, I was like, wait a minute, this is crazy. Now, how many of you listening have small children and maybe they're in class and they come home with a homework assignment and they got to write a sentence that says, you know, today our class did this, blah, blah, blah. But she turned around and said, today myself went to the store. You're going to say, change that R to you, because the OUR is more of a plural thing, right? It means plural. So, and you don't talk this to your kid because you don't want them to fail. So all of a sudden you run across Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. And it says, let's make man in our image, in the likenesses of ourselves. That's just about as plural you can get. But mom is like, it's the Spirit, the Holy Ghost, the Trinity, all that crap, right? And people are skipping these doctrines, but they're reading it and it's causing confusion, but they don't know why. And they're like, nah, that can't be right. Yeah, our image. Somebody's saying, a group of people saying, let's create these people, right? And so now in that same book, Reggie, is answers. I'm not saying there's all truth in there, but there's some. They couldn't make it all up. They had to use something, but in some stuff they missed over. So there's indicators in there that there's something deeper than the Jesus stories. Noah, who put all the animals on earth. Now I'm an animal lover, and I know damn well he didn't put all them elephants and giraffes in a 330-foot boat. And if he did, why, you know how we grew up, why didn't he leave one of the roaches behind? We wouldn't have no roaches.
Let the roaches drown.
Yeah, let the roaches drown. Split them up. The two male and female that you put two of everything on a boat, leave one of them damn roaches behind. He should have known that, right?
He should have.
He should have. So
the roaches, the flies, the mosquitoes, just let them drown.
That's something that don't make the trip. Okay. So now you got to deal with this. Now, of course, all of these things are not making no sense at all. Common sense, right? We're playing with our intellect. Common sense tells you every animal on the planet don't fit in no 330-foot boat. Okay. But we believe it. And then we pass it on to our children in such a way that we will beat them if they don't believe the story.
If they don't accept it, yeah.
They don't follow the doctrine. That you already know your spider sense tell you it don't make no damn sense, but I'm gonna beat it into my kid, right? Now, because the kids are religiously and emotionally bankrupt, they don't see you prospering from the gold mansion, and now children want it now. They don't want to go to heaven to get it. There ain't nobody buying that story. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to go to heaven. If I'm get there and if it exists, I want them to tell me, what's all this? Well, this is all the stuff you didn't get on earth. Well, send my ass back. Reincarnate me. You know what I'm saying? Send me back. I know you can. It's real. You can send me back. Send me back.
Right.
You know? Right. So you want that power, you know? But I think at the end of the day, when you tied into the UFO stuff, now we're dealing with high strangeness. You're dealing with technology. You're dealing with things that people can't comprehend. Now you're dealing with abductions, contact experiences.
I remember reading Whitley Strieber's books when I was in high school. You know, about the alien abductions and stuff. You know, and they talked about the one of the things they talked about is people who were usually abducted. They would bleed out of the nostril, out of one of the nostrils of their nose. Well, brother, that happened to me a lot. So I was wondering, like, damn, could I have been abducted?
I just did a show last week or about a week ago giving 15 indicators of how you may be an abductee, from sleep paralysis to scratches.
Talk about it.
Nosebleeds. You know, all of these things that people don't realize that there's some common stuff that's happening in this thing. Because in this dream state, and there's somebody watching now, you've had sleep paralysis and felt them almost having sex with you. I know you have, right? You know.
We all know I have wet dreams.
Yeah, well, this here is when you can't do nothing about it. You know what I'm saying? It's like you can't move, and then don't be. And I teach people this, and the aliens laugh when you are told to go, Jesus, 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 it's going to go away. Usually we talk about this in ufology. They just laugh and they just go out of courtesy. It ain't the Jesus thing. You know what I'm saying? It's just that they do have some respect and love, right? At some cases.
Right.
But then there's so many things that are happening when it gets down to where we are with this. And so if we go back real quickly to the 1930s and 40s and 50s, you know, when we had KKK, racism at its highest peak, still exists. No, I'm not doubting that. But think about at that time, MUFON, the reporting agency that I worked with, came into place around 1970s, 70 when I was born. And you don't have there was no place to report UFOs unless you went to the local sheriff department. What black person in those times who would have walked to a sheriff department when you got the KKK running them and then say, not only I'm black, but I saw an alien and I was contact. And back then they was treating white people crazy. Okay.
Right. Right.
So we got a whole history of encounters that had just got wiped off the face of the planet of conversation. There's no doctrines. There's no etches on the walls. There's no we just didn't talk about it. So now I'm trying to get these stories from Black people before people transition, and you got to hear some of the stories, right? And you got we're not in none of the movie, and I'll challenge anybody now. If you're a UFO fan, and predominantly my audience is white, okay, I'm still trying to connect with the brothers, and I tell them all. Besides Betty and Barney Hill story, and that's 50-50 because there was an interracial couple. That's 50-50. That's not a total Black story. Where do we hear that? Give me 5 documentaries, 5, whatever, compared to the thousands of stories, books that you hear our encounters. And I know some people are like, well, what did that matter? It matters a lot because we interpret things totally different. And there's also some connections between our heritage that sometimes go beyond Africa, goes beyond ancient civilization, and also goes into the galaxy of how we got here as though we some of the first people here, right? And so I'm not going to go into the Christopher Columbus, slaves came to America. Well, please, we was already here. They just dominated us, right? All us didn't come from slaves over there. That's a whole nother story.
Right.
But the whole point is that people are feeling these things. So when you wake up in the morning, and then you like, where these little scratches come from? And people get them, little red scratch, all of this stuff. You're like, what's happening? Some people get a lot of dreams, space dreams. So you have hybrids, you have all of these indicators, sleep paralysis. It's a possibility if you, start visioning. And all this is going to happen in a dream state because this is how they make the contact with us. And a lot of people get abducted. You might have seen things when you were a kid, little red lights, and there's so many indicators. And usually it comes to us when we're children, right? And then we grow up.
So you're saying it's not necessarily a physical abduction.
No,
it can actually be like I guess really abducting your energy body in a sense.
Not even your energy body, your consciousness. Okay. They are able to tap into our consciousness, which is even back in the ancient civilizations, when we think about pyramids and these big old rocks, even back then the ancient people will heal people with just thought, right?
Yep.
They would all get around in a circle and do a collective thought, and the energy that would work. It would move rocks. It would move because we got stuff now that even the technology we have now, we can't move any of these rocks that these pyramids got, right? And so the energy force that the extraterrestrials and aliens use is usually going to come into a cosmic way of vibration through our minds. It's almost that they're the puppet masters of things, right? Because and the mind is the way to go because it's the one place that we're going to have doubt. We're going to not question it when we should be questioning. We're going to wake up in the morning and like, that wasn't real. And they know this. They know because we're so bent on 2D that we got to see it physically.
That we only think physicality is real.
And we don't trust intuition.
Our 5 senses is what's real.
And we don't
people don't get it. It ain't about the 5 senses.
Yeah.
It's about what you feel is real, and you don't have to touch it. It's that inner part of you is what's real.
Yeah, and that's how I went through life, man. I follow my gut religiously, not just because it's full of food and it's big, but it literally is a good beacon, and I can have more gut experience and thought before anything else. I have my little mala beads in there, and sometimes I'll ask for decision making, but they know that that's a powerful tool because, you hear so much time when people do talk about their extraterrestrial experience that their lips wasn't moving when they heard them talk. Obviously, telepathy and all these other ways of communications is huge.
Well, okay? I mean, think about us. We can think and say stuff to ourselves without having our lips moving.
And we almost could do it in a conversation We don't know it, but I can walk up to you. What's up, bro? What's up? What's been on happening? What's happening with you? Nothing, man. It's a big, yo. You know it's real. And by that whole time we going through and ain't completed a sentence, I already know how your day went, what's going on. If you broke, I'm broke. And we ain't really having no communication, but yet something is transmitting between the unheard stuff that you understand some wave that I'm sending you to complete those things, right?
Well, see, and brother, this is the thing that I don't think a lot of people realize, and something that I want to start to trying to expand to as well, is that we can connect, because this is the thing for me, and I've thought about this for a long time. How is it that we can believe that with, you know, there's 100 billion stars in a galaxy? At least that's probably a small number. Okay, there are 1 billion galaxies in the universe. Now let's just say that people are right, that some meteorite came, hit Earth, and then it like started life on Earth. Okay, that just some random event. What's the odds that random event can only happen one time when there's millions and trillions of billions of stars that probably got millions and billions of planets around every star, and then we only got one planet in the whole universe that has life on it? What's the odds?
Well,
don't even make sense that it wouldn't be, you know?
I tell you what, I think it's time for them to hear some stuff. I need to take a real quick break. I need to just go in and I've been drinking, you know, I had to drink so much water. This is today. Before me and you sitting here, I'm drinking all this water. So I got to go take a real quick little, and then I'm going to give them something that they're ready to hear. Okay.
All right. Come on with it. Come on with it.
Alien
you know the government been
yeah, I'm gonna give out some inside stuff. I'm in tune with it. I'm gonna give you some real information to answer not only what he said, but it's gonna startle some of them, but it is gonna my job is to give you enough information you can read, something you can see, something you can hear. And this is my disclaimer: to awaken your curiosity to the possibility that we're not alone in this universe. And then you go the rest of the way yourself. But what I'm going to share with you is what he asked, the question of how this happened. And don't be scared when I get back. I'll be right back.
All right. All right. So he's coming back. He's coming back. So, all right, family. I see y'all over here in this chat. I had to find the chat. They didn't have it where I was. So I can see y'all in here. So I see you, Miami. I see you. Who else is in there? I saw LA, Debbie. Man, yeah, I see all of y'all there. I see all of y'all. Donnell. So come on with it. Come on with it. I see y'all. So we're gonna get into some good stuff here. So start talking about some of his research that he's had, because guys, there's some stuff happening on this end that he's been talking to me about over the last couple of years. It's gonna trip you out. It's gonna trip you out. It's for real. So get ready. Get ready, get ready, get ready. So yeah. But just guys, this is one of the things for me, is just like I said, it just seems crazy to think that we could be the only life forms or the only planet with life in the universe, you know. So just the odds that we could be the only planet in the universe just seems that just would be like infinitesimally weird, that we'd be the only source of life in the universe, you know. Just crazy. So come on with it. Come on with it, bro.
Here we go. Yeah.
And I might have to step away here for a little bit to go do me a little break here.
Well, go ahead. Just put it up and I'll just talk to him before you get back. Go ahead and take it. Well, I'll just entertain him until you get right back.
You're up, so go for it.
All right. All right. Well, you might want to hear this too. That's the whole point.
No, I do. Well, come on with it. I got you. I got you.
Now, if he goes after I say what he said, because I'm gonna put something into y'all. Y'all may like, oh shit, I gotta take a dump. You know, this is strong. All right. So first of all, let me give you all the true indicators of what's happening, and I'll talk around a little bit before my brother gets back. You know, when you think of Earth and you think of the surroundings, what's happening here, or basically the format of things. And I'll just start with some of the basic stuff. And you start thinking about dogs, cats, birds, whatever, and we're going to say God created the planet. Let's just start there. But then you talking about the formation of the divine intelligence of two eyes, a nose, or whatever. Your dog got two eyes and a nose, your fish, your roach. I don't know about the roach, but I know the mouse and rats. And so there's this formulation that somebody says we're going to create man, which we can go back to the Anunnaki, you go back to Enlil, Enki, and their sister, of how maybe we got here, who created us, who created the human, were we already here? Was it Neanderthal men, or just, did we evolve from apes? Which probably not, because if we did evolve from apes, why are they still here? Okay. So you can kill that story. You know what I mean? There's no way that we did that. But then there was different types of species. And then, of course, in our community, men, our DNA has been altered like 64 times, meaning somebody's been tinkering with this thing to become to where we are. So let's get deep now. When you hear the scripture, let's make man in our image, in the likeness of ourselves, one of the things that people ask me all the time, Roderick, what do the aliens look like? And I try to shock people and say, well, what if we look like them? Okay. What if we look like them? And just let that ponder for a minute. Okay. It's no different than, you walk up to me and say, man, or they walk up to Reggie and say, you look like Roderick, man. And he's going to correct you and say, how could I? He looks like me. I was here first. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That it's not possible. So there was this thing that's surfacing behind the scenes. Okay. I got some of the documents. There was an alien. We call her Ariel. She was captured. And she wouldn't speak to anyone. And this is in our archives. And I'm telling you some truths in this. And it was
Who captured her? Where?
Our government captured her and had her in one of our underground things and was interviewing her. One of the ladies who died not long ago had kept the notes, and then she sent them to somebody privately to let everything out of the bag. Ariel began to explain life, which is something I've already known. There's rumors that Earth is just really what we call a project planet. Okay. Earth could be what we call a prison planet. This is why and there are some changes happening right now. This is why there is a movement to get off the planet. Supposedly our souls are trapped here because it's a prison planet. This is why you got deja vu. You got all of these people living these lives, and why some people are trying to get off the planet, because there's supposedly some soul net. And if you start looking, it's starting to appear. There's a lot of stuff happening. The government is trying to release information that we don't really talk about. But Ariel talks about businesses and corporations. So our planet is really new. It's really new, but it's very unstable. This is why the aliens don't live here, because number one, they live thousands of years in their biological bodies. And our bodies were done on purpose to only live 60 to 100 years or 100 years. Our food dies bringing it down to 60. But the whole point is Earth, again, is a prison planet. Now, you start want to think about divine intelligence. When she started talking about that there are corporations outside of our entities, they all have projects here on Earth, whether it's grass, planets, species, all these different animals. you can pay money and have this project done. So you're talking about a higher intelligence away from us. For example, we do get a lot of UFOs. We do get them out in our skies. And I try to tell people, you've never seen one stop for gas, right? So we know they have a higher energy. And that is another story to why the government is covering it up, because there are things that people cannot handle, period. There's some stuff I know in files that people cannot periodly handle. All right. So the whole point is Ariel talks about, and I'm going to give you some examples. One of the first examples that she let us know that we were created and not through the God story of two people, Adam and Eve, and out of my ribs. There is a particular animal that is on our planet walking around today that was put here by the aliens to give us indicators to learn from, to know that we just didn't pop up here. And well, we got brought here and propped up here, but our creation was somewhere in the thing. And I'll get this to your audience. You look it up and you might can put a picture up. But anyway, if you ever seen so you talk about all of the species, male, females, you got cats, can't breed with dogs. You got all these animals, only a few of them maybe can cross species. Okay. But usually they're in the same kind of species planet. I mean, same family, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So one of the animals that this alien said that they put her for us humans to discover, which is walking the planet right now, is a duck-billed platypus. I don't know if you can pull up a picture and Google it and put it on the screen.
Let's see here.
Yeah, so print it. Yeah, if you can do a screen share or something. I don't know.
Hold on, I'm gonna find one.
Okay, so this duck-billed platypus is an animal, and if you look at it, so if you know biology or whatever, birds lay eggs, mammal is a live bearer, babies, that's why we call mammals or whatever. This particular animal is half duck, half beaver, got webbed feet. It's got it lay eggs, but the eggs are mammals when they're born. All this stuff that let you know, and the alien said that we should figure smart enough to know that this thing is not created by Adam, Eve, God making something in these species. This is us playing with this genetic stuff. And if you get a picture of it, if you're looking at it, you'll see what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I'm getting it. I'm getting it. I'm a little bit slow on the uptake here.
No, that's all right. Take your time because it's still here. It ain't going nowhere. So for starters, the alien begins to talk about corporations. It talks about our planet. It talks about how, and of course, by the way, you want to know where they are. They're in the water. They've always been there. Okay. Earth is 73% water. Our bodies are water. Mankind has only explored 3% of the oceans. We don't know what's down there. Okay. But for a reason, the government knows. We're told not to come down there. We got all this technology. There's a duck-billed platypus. So look at this thing. It's a fairy beaver with a duck bill, web feet, beaver tail, and all of these other stuff. That's a mixture between a bird and an animal. It's impossible, right? We just don't have it that way. But the alien says in these notes that they put this thing here to let us know that, wait a minute, it's not done by no godly stuff that you hear and read about, right? That you all were genetic. So she started telling us about, there's a company called Blossoms and whatever. And Blossoms and whatever makes flowers and stuff. And so this company, which are extraterrestrials, then created the bee. They created this bee, which is on Earth by their project, so that it can fly around to feed their animals. Now we're being told this story of, the birds and the bees are around pollinating. None of this stuff it's just not happening. Okay. And then she starts telling more about our stories. She started talking about our histories. Of course, at this time, we're getting more information on the genetics of who we are, uh, why we have some deficiencies in these areas. But at the end of the day, that aliens and how we were created could have come from the components of somebody's genetic tampering in making us the way we are. And in the stores in Lil and Inky that we were, you can take it down now, I guess, unless you
All
want.
right.
Yeah.
Somebody was asking, is Ariel, is she's a she, and is she still alive?
She doesn't, she talks about phenomenon energy of that is what's ruling. She talks about we all are both really, right? And she is not with us anymore. She actually talked about how the suit that she was in is just biological as the soul. She called it the God, and just ran off my mind, but there's a connection between our souls and our bodies, but one is not so much can't live without the other, but the whole point is that the bodies are just almost mechanical suits of where we are. So we are souls, right? And she tells about all of that stuff, and she talks about more of really even like she even talked about the history of like our businesses, corporate, and all this stuff didn't just come from anywhere, right? And then when you start thinking about Tesla, you start thinking about all these people are being time travelers. She talks about that. She talked about that there was a corporation that runs this, and she called it the man. My mind just went blank. But anyway, there was a war between the two, and the humans, of course, all of us was the prize of what they were doing. But there are some bad aliens out there, and then there's some good ones. But the whole thing about it, though, is that we're not designed to get off the planet, and that's the problem we having right now. Is that we're getting off the planet. We're a barbaric species. We're supposed to deal with things with love and all of this stuff, but now we're trying to get off, and this is why you start talking about the moon, the Artemis rocket. We ain't been back to the moon. We ain't never been back to the moon from the day they say we went. We actually went, but not like what they said, because the ETs told us not to come back. That's their observation tower. Okay. Yeah. Okay. The moon.
And that's funny because I've actually heard that idea that the moon, that it's not really it's artificial.
Yep. Yeah, we got stories. I got government documents where they dropped some stuff there and they heard the boom all the way around. We don't go. The moon don't rotate around us. It stays always on one side. So there's always the dark side of the moon.
Yep.
And so therefore, but if you notice the Artemis rocket, all that stuff was trying to go to the moon, and that thing never got off the ground. It's not going, right? And in the Japanese or Chinese, whatever, they just had something. What they was trying to go to the moon, it crashed the other day. Now we've all had.
I've even heard stories where, like, all these countries have these nuclear weapons.
All right, so
and people and these countries have, like, there's been somebody that tried to push the button to just blow everything up. Well, and they said that somebody stopped, or something stopped this from happening, because if there is a nuclear explosion, it not only happens on Earth, it happens interdimensionally, and it messes stuff up interdimensionally.
Okay, so
nuclear explosion.
So here's the deal. When we did the first bomb, all right, let me go back. In 1930, there was an expedition that went to Russia. Went to the Antarctica. And this was during the war when we were fighting for uranium. Okay, there was the next military grade to do high potent weaponry. There was a group out of Russia that went into the Antarctica, and when they got there, they ran into 3 bronze beings. They was like really tall, and they spoke telepathically, and they claimed to be part of the creators of what we were. They told them, "We know why you're here, and this is, And they was like, no, we're on a peace mission. They're like, no, we know why you're here. Don't do it. So Hitler at the time was spying on the Russians, and he overheard that there was these whatever. So when these Russians went back and told, I forget the guy over Russia, he sentenced all of them to prison because he thought they was just like didn't want to be in Antarctica because of the harsh environment. So this guy goes to back, and Hitler sends a team over there in the 40s, and they then get faced with a flying saucer. Hitler shoots it down. He gets it. He's reverse engineering it. He's trying to put a bump because we came really close to all of us speaking German, by the way. Okay.
Yeah, because they invented the rockets and all of that.
And he was reverse engineering the first Bell UFO, this flying saucer thing or whatever. And so Hitler finds out, and then of course our government, I don't think it was Truman, it was the other dude. So he was like, we need to go over there. And then we sent, and this was Abner Byrd, if y'all heard the story. So Abner Byrd was sent over to Antarctica, and we had the first weaponized nuclear submarine, all of this stuff. Now, by this time, before that happened, we dropped the bomb on Hiroshima, if I'm pronouncing it right. Hiroshima. This was one of the first nuclear explosions. This is when all the flying saucers start showing up, because we just now showed that we have nuclear capabilities. Robert Salas, who my brother spoken before, was the Minuteman of Maelstrom Air Force Base. He was there when the UFO came and turned off our nuclear weapons. Okay. And to let us know, and then sometime they turn them on to let us know they can turn them off. And if you think about me being a UFO investigator, there was a landing in McKinney a couple of years ago here in Dallas. We went out there. So we have to check for radiation. Wherever it happens, radiation, wherever they come from, this radiation, they can live on it, but we can't. So nuclear weapons is radiation. So we had a theory that maybe, or hypothesis, I'm sorry, that maybe they were refueling energy there. But now became obvious it's not something that we want. You can look this up, all of you. There is a that was released not long ago where we were testing a rocket back in the 40s or 50s. And when they came back with the film, they showed, and it's in the film, they released it. When this rocket was going up in the sky, a UFO comes out of nowhere, comes under here, shoots a beam in it, moves over here, shoots another beam to disarm this thing and leave. Okay. And that's when we really know that they are saying, hey, don't play with this stuff. So that is the whole point, is that they don't want us playing with the nuclear weapons, because this is Project Earth. This is not our planet. And they're like, no, we have to do this. And this can go back to the story, the Tower of Babel, when they split us up to have different languages because we were trying to be too smart together. But anyway, so back to the history story. So Hitler, our government, Eisenhower. It was Eisenhower. Eisenhower was like, go over to Antarctica and get this uranium, and anybody who you meet, bend them to the will of the United States. So we go over there with Abner Byrd. I think it was 3,000 people, the first weaponized nuclear submarine, 3 or 4 aircraft carriers. This time, when we go, we're met in Antarctica by 5 or 6 flying saucers. And within 2 minutes, they decimated the entire, and this is a true story, they decimated the entire military. And Abner Byrd turned and they surrendered to go back. He came back and said the enemy showed mercy. Now, where you get is an elevation. When we was there the first time in Antarctica, they met us and said, go back. The second time they sent a spacecraft, we shot it down. Same thing with Roswell, New Mexico. And then this last time we come, they wipe us out quickly to let us know this is no joke. And so by this time, Hitler was working on his thing. We bring down the Berlin Wall. Now you have Warner Byrne and all them people, how NASA was formed, because we took all of Hitler's scientists, gave them a pardon or whatever you want to call it, War Crimes Act, gave them And so they can then give us all the technology that they learned from the flying saucer. And now NASA was born from that, right? And so so our country has a history of these encounters, but what you're seeing now is the fact that we're really the ones that have been firing up on them and them not firing up on us. Because if they wanted to really take us out, they could have done it when we had bow and arrows and muskets, right? Not nuclear weapons. Okay. However, it's not just one civilization. They're coming from all over the place now. And we're opening up these wormholes through our nuclear testing. We're opening up these portals. And like I said before, you're talking about them hiding in the water. And so they've been here. They're here all over. If you're watching the government recently, and I'm just going to give y'all a whole crash of stuff. If you've been watching the congressional hearings in the last 2 weeks and then 3 months before that, they're trying to tell the public as best as they can that something is coming. They're here, and we got the indicators and stuff. But you heard one of the military persons say the military is finding abandoned aircraft all the time. Now, I come from the hood. If you find an abandoned car, the person in it is walking around somewhere, right? And nobody's asking. This is on CNN. It's on news. Nobody's asking where are the occupant that was flying this craft, right? But they're saying that they're finding these ships. Now we got the Vegas stuff, we got abductions, we got the stories. A lot of people don't know that for the first time you're going to see. All right, so let me back up for a minute. So by all of this time, I decided to form what I call Project Black. Project Black is an acronym for the Black League of Alien Contact Knowledge. Okay, I feel that if the extraterrestrial shows up tomorrow and they're the Vatican has already said that they're going to tell them that they're Christians. They summon all of the world.
They believe in Jesus.
They believe in Jesus because they got to keep the story going that they believe in Jesus too. They already called people together, the religious leaders over all these different countries that are there now, and they are, telling these people that, these extraterrestrials are possibly Christian, right? And they're preparing for the story. We have, Congress, we have an official UFO office. Everybody's watching. If you pay taxes and you live in the United States, you're paying for it. This is real. This is real. We had an object that came in our atmosphere called Muir. Look it up. A couple of years back, it came in. Unlike any other thing, we thought it was an asteroid. It came in our atmosphere, went around Earth like asteroids don't do, and went back somewhere. And now we got the Space Force, and now the story is something that's coming back, right? We have, all these people that are, talking about, abductions. You got Michelle Barack Obama, ex-president. They're doing a documentary on the Bonnie Hill story right now about UFOs. And so why is all of this happening? And like I say, Project Black is not to disconnect from anybody white. It's just I realized that in our community, UFO conversations, our tagline to start the conversations is disproportionately represented. People like myself, as well as reports and everything else. And it has grew enormously. I have TV deals with it now, and I can't give all the details, but I have, a lot of celebrities because we're going to do workshops and seminars to help people come forward with their experiences. I get phone calls daily, people now sharing their story. I have a black guy that's going to be a whistleblower that was in Antarctica back when he was 20. He's 68 now. He worked for a project, Deep Freeze. He is giving me the contractor's name, everything. He was in Antarctica when they was in the big spaceships was there, and the government is working with them. I've got all these people that are coming together with technology. What is happening? And it's a strange thing right now because, we're trying to get off the planet. And I feel that, if we don't have our young folks ready, even if you're listening, get a telescope. And it ain't to make your children become astronauts. Get them to get curious, to look over to you, mom, dad, brother, cousin. Are we alone? And you got to tell them the freaking truth. No, there's some stuff out there because we're moving into space economy right now. And Morgan Stanley is telling all their investors, invest in space tourism, invest in space mining. And we don't hear that in our community. We don't care. We don't want to go past what's happening to us right now. I'm doing a show tonight when we get through here talking about who owns the moon. I'm finding all these documents in place that we have government documents in place that says that they have no right to say who owns space. But because the government don't want to get there first and claim the land, that any private contractors and people who can get there, like Mars, and if they can get there and build a colony or civilization, a small colony for 10 years, they get a right to have over, I think, 100 miles or whatever. So they know this. These, people that don't look like us, Elon Musk and all, they're out there getting ready to own the freaking galaxy. We're not going to own nothing. But the ETs don't want us off the planet. So there's just so much stuff going on, brother, that's deeper. And I'm just, for the sake of time for you, I'm just like skating everywhere. And then I did decide not to give some scary stuff because, I don't want to promote fear. I just want to promote reality. But then I hear things that a lot of people can't handle. I know stuff that a lot of people don't want to know. But I'm curious enough to tell you, you don't have to walk that is in fear, but I will tell you this. There's a lot of people out there being abducted. There's a lot of people, you got hybrids that's walking among you. Some of you people have, different these blood type, extraterrestrial blood types. Look them up, because I just found out my daughter and then the ex-wife has that blood type. And I'm like, I've been this close to this all along, but you don't know. But my ex-wife have felt the mother of my children all her life. She's felt different. We was dealing with that when we were young, and now I can put back on it and say, oh my God, right? So there's a lot of you are feeling displaced, so we can get into being star seeds or star childs, or and it's just no joke, right? So recently, yesterday, 2 days ago, I signed a big contract with Dr. Doug Edward Haynes. Y'all can look him up. He's a brother. He's the first brother to own a airlines, which was a small airlines, and he sold it FAA cleared, but he's also cleared to own where he's building a spaceship, space line. Right now, there's rules that you can build what we call cargo. So he called me up and he says, man, I see what you're doing. There's a black planet out there. He's already got patents. He got technology. He's already built the first flying car, one of his first flying cars, and it's not the first. As you know, in 3 years, they just cleared the space. We're going to have flying cars. Go look it up. They're selling them right now.
Brother, they already got them.
Yeah. So he's built a flying saucer car. So he gave me access to the trademarks and patents. He's an older gentleman for Project Black. And so we're going to incorporate, we're going to do shares, we're going to build a spacecraft. And he's already got the first, he has a hangar and all that stuff out in Colorado. He's already built the rockets and stuff. Elon Musk, a lot of them people have stole some of his stuff. So we're going to bring it into fruition, because it is time for us to think bigger and get off this planet, or get our children to begin to take ownership in these asteroids and all of this stuff, because whoever get there get to own it. And then but if they get there now and colonize everything, you're not going to find any seeds. I tell my audience, I got, even for my children, even right here, I have a bug out bag, and in here has seeds. I collect seeds on purpose, because now when I look at and listen to some of the extraterrestrials, they talk about the future. The reason why we having all these seedless stuff is because somebody's going to control the food supply. If you can't grow it and you get out there in space and you don't have nothing to grow, and then on Earth, 20 years from now, everything is seedless, but they can grow it somewhere. So I tell the audience, collect seeds, buy them, put them up, leave them to your children as an inheritance. So if they're out here on the land somewhere, they can raise a watermelon or something, because there is a big plan. They're controlling the water, but they're also trying to get off the planet, and we ain't even thinking about that, right? Not even close.
Now, there was a question that was earlier. You were saying something about the platypus and the ocean, and you took it another direction.
Oh, okay.
So Do you remember what you were talking about? Something about the platypus and the oceans and
I'll start with the ocean, then I'll jump back into the platypus. The
okay.
ocean, Earth is 73% water. Our ocean and mankind has only explored 3% of the oceans. 90% of all UFO sightings, we have about 300 in Texas, about 4,000 a month. Okay. 90% of all UFO sightings come out of water. So you got Michigan, California, and then over at Florida coastlines. They always come in and out. So I will let you know our technology, we can't do that. We have nothing that's what we call transmedium technology, meaning there's something can come out of the sky, out of space, air, and then go into water. We have no propulsion systems that can fly, jet, go into the water. It's going to put it out. We can't get nothing to come out the water, fly, and going to go into space. So we know that this is where extraterrestrial civilization is there. All right. Our government been knowing this quite some time. Now, out of all the money in the world, you notice we spend no money going to the bottom of the ocean. Oh, they may have these little mini subs, all this kind of stuff, but we ain't trying to go down there. We told, don't come here. You know they're here. We have what we call USOs. These are underwater submersibles, which is like UFOs. And to give you some context, y'all, anything flying around in the sky is a UFO. Anything we don't know what it is a UFO. And not all UFOs are aliens. Okay. However, all aliens use UFOs to get around here. Either way. Kind of like that deal, somebody was asking me about, and I'm just getting off the bat here. Well, everybody ain't racist who follow Trump. So I said, no, all of Donald Trump's followers are not racist. They're not. But all the racists follow Donald Trump. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, all the UFOs flying around are not alien driven, but all the aliens do use UFOs. So the water is something that we've been knowing, and everybody knows that they are here and been here. And this is where they hide because we don't have the technology. We have no technology to go to the bottom of our oceans. None. Not the bottom. Right. So they hide there. They come out of the water back and forth. We know this, but we just not there yet to do it. When it comes to the platypus, when you're talking about genetics, what the alien was telling us was that genetically, this should tell you this animal was put here to defy the scientific that you involve from apes, that all of these stories that you hear in that you were created by something, someone, or somewhat, whether there's a galaxy God or universal God. Now, what Reggie was alluding to as well, if you remember the movie Men in Black, when one of the series, or either the second one or first one, they was looking for the galaxy, right? And they was like combing the skies, and the thing was here to get the galaxy, and it was like, but how could it be? It's not on Earth. It's so big. And that dog said, "You humans are so small-minded. The galaxy doesn't have to be." It was small as a marble, but it was in there. The galaxy was in there, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's how we see things. We think that the galaxy is out there, but it's all within us and all this stuff. So,
yeah.
And so
that's very true, because we think that we need ships to communicate or get to communicate with the aliens, and really everything in the universe is connected from within us. Everything.
Divine intelligence. So divine intelligence connected all, and that's what she was saying, that we're all are connected, and at some point you can, as we talk about meditation, as you find in yourself. And so in order to do that, you're going to have to step away from the Christianity side of things, of the blockage, and dream bigger.
Fear is a blockage.
Oh yeah, my God, yeah. So it's not about that part, which is true. Fear is that main blockage, but you have to get to a point where you have to begin to believe in the unbelievable. So where I'm going with this is, one of the things I developed that helped me in ufology to talk to people with these high strange stories is I developed this saying of I believe you believe. So for example, if Reggie comes to me or Reginald comes to me and say, hey man, there's a leprechaun behind that dumpster. Can you see the rainbow and the gold? I don't have to look at my brother and say he's nuts, right? But yet I don't see what he sees. But yet he's telling me it's there. And what grew my brand so big in developing that place of trust is that I'll look at him and say, Reggie, look, because most of the time what people want is people to believe them, right? So you're talking about this is going to work for your relationship, husband, wives, cousins, all of this stuff, especially when you're dealing with high strangeness. So I will look him in the eye and he'll say, do you believe me? And I'm going to look him in the eye and say, I believe you believe that there's a leprechaun behind there, so I'm going to go with you. You get what I'm saying?
Let me talk about that a little bit too.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
So the point of the matter is I got his back because I may not have the gift or the vision or anything that he has, but because I know him, I believe he believed that it's there. I got my gun. I got whatever you need. Let's go. I'm going on this journey with you. And that will allow you to begin to not walk in their shoes, but at the same time, you can understand them. And you may have an experience yourself because now your eyes are, and I tell my audience all the time, your eyes are useless when your mind is blind. That is my saying, right? And so when that mind is blind, I don't care what your eyes see. It don't matter. You're not going to interpret it. You're not going to investigate it. You're not going to believe. So that it's all in the mind now of possibilities. And once you begin to understand that there's high strangeness, there's all these things. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me speak to that because this what you're saying is very real, and this is one of the things that I'm trying to help guide people to, even just through my channel. So one of the things that I'm doing is I'm breaking a frame. I'm breaking a frame, a religious frame, and a religious belief system because the religious belief systems make you think. It forces you into someone else's reality and someone else's vision of what your life and the world should be like. It literally forces your mind into a box.
Right.
But what we have to understand is that there is possibilities of experience beyond that box, and that there are some of us that have gifts that others cannot touch. But what we do from our boxed in perspective, we think that there's this objective reality when it's really not.
Right.
There is an objectivity, but there is a subjective part that like you can see a UFO, Roderick. You can see a UFO, but if I'm not tuned like you're tuned, we can be standing right next to each other and I can't see it, but you can.
True enough.
But what we'll do as a people is we'll go, well, am I crazy? He can't see it. I must be crazy. Rather than understanding that, wait a minute, I have a gift. I might be vibrationally tuned a certain way that I can see this, but the person that's not vibrationally tuned like me can't. But what we'll do is dismiss our personal experience. And we got to stop doing that. Because what we feel and our experience is what's real. And this is where people that have like schizophrenia and stuff like that. We define these people as crazy because they can see and talk to other entities or other people, other aspects of themselves. But in reality, they have a gift that they are able to see things beyond our ability to see. But we've defined that as crazy.
And you hit on a button. I've trained on what we call remote viewing. I was getting pretty good at it. And remote viewing causes you to have to. The first thing is to rely on intuition. The first feeling you get trusted, which most people don't. Right. And you can literally get coordinates and see things from afar because and everybody can do it as long as you just home in on it over time, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's pretty much so, and this is the humor side. And you and I talk about it where, I got so much stuff going on now. Dating is not, especially in our community, most people and women, I'm saying not this for everybody, but they're still, especially when they get my age and our age, Christianity is like the last thing they can turn to for whatever. It's like now they really turn to it, right? Because there ain't nothing else really. And the challenge now, and I have a community of what I call truth seekers, and that's who they are. I open up my show, Truth Seekers, I give it to them. And the only reason I brought the dating side up because the most difficult side of this is meeting people that, and you probably experienced it, where let's just say, someone says, hey, I want you to meet Roderick, okay. And the friends over here is your godly man.
Right.
Okay. And you got to explain me, right? You got to say, no, he believes in aliens, extraterrestrials, and I'm no longer believes in it. I know it, right? There's a difference now. Different than believing and knowing. Okay. I got knowledge, proof, evidence, all of this stuff.
We talk about that all the time. Difference between believing and knowing.
Yeah. And so it's like, and y'all can see me and him as coordinated, and we don't have that conversation, but we're on the same different roads, but our belief system is lining up with the cosmos, right? So, I know for a fact. So I tell people, no, you don't go and try to explain me to your friends because you can't do it. You can't tell them that I believe in or understand the life after death and, there's spirits and all of this stuff. But my hypocrisy stops a little bit because I do get people that say they see dead people. And I'll be like, well, my hypocrisy stops a little bit there if I was dating somebody that had that gift, because I wouldn't want them to be sitting there and after I did what I did, because I work hard when I do that. And you know what I'm saying? Because I'm doing this.
Hey, there's some aliens, but you see dead people?
Yeah. She'd be like, she's looking up because I'm thinking I done did that thing. She looking up like, bro, I done just blew this out of sight. And she goes, I see your grandmother. Like, who? I see your grandmother. Where? Over there. What did she say? She said, you go, boy.
You crazy.
So you telling me my grandmother watching us having sex and told you to tell me you go, boy? You know what I'm saying? I love my grandmother and the macaroni and cheese, but you tell her ass to go wherever she's going, right? So I don't think my hypocrisy will allow me to go that far where she see dead people. And because I got friends that have wives that be talking about their team in space, and they'll be sitting, we all be sitting around.
Hey, brother, it's real. It's real.
Just stop and say, my team says such and such. And I'll be looking at him like, dude, I'm in this. I'm all in. But I don't think I could have a conversation and you talking to your wife and she says something about a team. I'll be like, you need to tell all y'all asses to shut up. You know what I'm saying? But I will have that type of conversation because I know it's real. You know what I'm saying? I'm not talking crazy. You tell your team shut. I'm saying you tell them, all of y'all, to shut the F up. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Because I know they there. You know what I'm saying?
Tell your team to leave the room.
Tell them to leave the room because I'm about to do this thing. And so it's like, but this is the high strangeness. And so, I don't date as much as I do. I get people that want to be in this sphere, but I'm like, look, I'm leading a lot of people. I'm doing this thing. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm still going to do it. It ain't no friend zones here. So don't y'all do that contact. The whole point is it's going to take special people to walk this journey. And I'm here rather to help people explore. I don't know about the embedness in it because, like I said, I developed the skill of I believe, you believe, and I think that's essential to everybody. Put that in your war chest, your skill set. If you run across or dealing with someone or somebody decide, because there's the frequency shifting right now. Being in Aquarius, all of these people are getting their senses are heightened, especially some of these younger folks who's been wondering. It's happening right now for a reason. So if you start running into that, or your kid or some of your loved ones that they're beginning to, I'm not going to use the term woke because I don't like that, but if they begin to connect, their vibration is beginning to evolve and they start experiencing this weirdness and they want to tell you some stories. And if you can't fathom it because it's not happening to you,
right?
Just use this. I believe you believe what you're saying, and so therefore I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna go with you. I'm gonna talk with you. We can go there, whatever, because that's what it's gonna take these days. Because now with all the UFO stuff now, I do believe, brother, that it's validation now, right? All the people who thought they was crazy, now the government is saying that they're here. We know that they're here, and now the government is going one extra step. And why they're doing it, I don't know. Where they're now trying to tell people, but what I do know, we're not. People want disclosure is the word today on the streets, and I try to give a practical conversation for that because I fly around all the time, right? And we have turbulence and all this stuff. But now the FAA is trying to let people know that a lot of these things are because they're running into what now we call UAP, which they don't use the term UFO because it's too scary. The UAP is the unidentified aerial phenomena versus unidentified flying objects, right? That's a little more terror from the past. So, but we have airlines reporting that they're turning off instrument panels. This is happening daily with a D, but can you imagine commercial, right? Getting off a plane because you want that's what we're voting for now. You want disclosure, and they hand you a piece of paper and say, by the way, Mr. Martin, flight 1736, they experienced some turbulence. They didn't crash because the pilot got those ninja skills, but just like a UFO passed by and it turned off the instrument panel. Are you getting on that? So, for example, people getting inducted all day long. So you live in this nice neighborhood, you look down the road and you see Mr. Jones, them grass growing. Oh, you mad? This is devaluing your property. But you dig deep enough and get this information package that he'd been abducted by aliens. Now, he come back with a Whitley Strieber story, which Whitley and I talk on the phone. I was going to tell you that I was looking for my autographed books and stuff. But Whitley, they screwed him. And I'm not talking, let me give y'all, put the kids to bed. They screwed him. Okay? You know what I'm saying? Do you want that? Do you want that? You know what I'm saying? And you want to laugh?
Talk about a prison planet.
Talk about a prison planet. They screwed him. And he tells his story like, no, they did that to me, right? So now we got government reports. I have them. Women reporting being pregnant by aliens right now. Okay. There's all kinds of stuff happening in real time, but that we don't talk about it because we can't talk about it. And Project Black is there because if they showed up tomorrow, our community will be the hardest hit community mentally. We would have a breakdown calamity because of the Christian veil and grip that it has on our minds, not the bodies, the mind. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to break it. Now I don't go into kinetic, how you do it, kinetic and I just try to go reality to say, follow and trust that instinct that you have. Go and question the narrative that you see. You have to. And then once you look at the narrative and you're talking about the why, and I don't care what you see in society, what you hear about spirituality, not spirituality, but Christianity, just know that if they just trying to tell you what and how it happened, what happened to Jesus and how it happened, you better start asking why it happened. And then why not this? And why kids was doing it when they was young. Well, mom, you tell them to take out the trash. Why? And when we beat that part out of them, because we say, you better shut up. Don't ask me nothing else or I'm going to whoop you. Don't ask why. Just do what you told.
Yeah.
But yet it's a natural instinct that's born in all of us to be inquisitive, to ask the questions, to understand, to comprehend, to get a better understanding, to make that better decision. And you right now watching me is taking it out of your children right now, because when they come in there and asking you too many questions, you get ticked off. Just say you don't know. Be honest. I don't know. Just be honest with the kid, right? And then he's gonna go look for it himself. Just don't tell him to shut up and stop asking and get up for church Sunday.
God don't want you to know that.
God don't. Yeah, that's my preaching side of it. But go ahead, brother.
All right. Well, hey, brother. On that note, then we probably need to wrap it up. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about or mention before we go? So it's been really interesting and very eye-opening and enlightening conversation.
Well, first of all, I'll say, I tell you all the time, I love you, right? We,
Absolutely.
I don't waste time. I've learned that now because it's true, it's real, and people need to know it, right? So I love you, but I also respect
Got you, bro.
my brother and what he does, right? And I learn a lot from him. And if you heard little sprinkles in the story, he's guided me just as much as I've done things and everything else. And he ain't never, come to me and say, brother, you just gotta stop believing in the Lord. You know what I'm saying? Or, it's a sham. You've always had the ability to follow that principle: when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So I think for your listeners and people that are coming here, you're here because you're ready to hear it. But I think if you grow to a point to where you hear what he says, but then also explore why he said it, so that now you'll get a better understanding. But so I will say thank you for all what you're doing. I'm proud of you. Have always been. I got your back. You know that. You know what I'm saying. And so just being here today, and as our paths are crossing, as we're getting older to achieve what we're doing, we're going to change a lot of lives. You're already doing that. And so my thing is to just live a life where you're going to be remembered, right? And so when my time comes, I'm out of here. I want y'all to cry. You know what I'm saying? Cry for me. Don't just stop doing what you're doing. Take off from work. You can't talk. You can't have sex tonight. You just don't feel like it. Roderick is going. That's the impact I'm trying to do, right? I'm trying to make people miss my ass, And so, I want who wives that watch my show that night tell their husbands, I can't give you none. Roderick's gone. You know what I'm saying?
See, you crazy, man. You crazy.
That's the impact that I work for, right? And so that's what it's all about. But you do that, man. You're there, and so much love. So
No, most definitely, man. And then back at you, man. So I love you too, and man, know that I'm so proud of what you're doing and what you've accomplished. So there's been many times that we just been sitting around and having conversations about stuff, and what we want to do. What our purpose is, and a lot of days, back then we didn't have no idea what our purpose was going to be.
And most people don't. And Oprah said, right? She was like, I didn't know. I think what people don't want to do is that most people have the Mother Teresa syndrome, or what I call the Mother Teresa syndrome, is what they want things better for other people than they want them from themselves. The other part is green light syndrome, right? I tell this to my audience all the time. There is no way, if you want it to be perfect and you want the spiritual world, because there is some rules there. And one of those rules that I realize is that when you have an idea, I'm going to give you to go with this. If you have an idea and you're sitting here, because when we meditate in prayer and thought, we're sending it out to the cosmos. There is some type of rules where they don't interfere. Whatever our answers are going to come from another man and within ourselves, right? And when I say man, of inventions or whatever. So when you got those dreams and ideas and the strange feelings and all that, it's time to act upon it. Because I know a lot of people sat there and go, man, they don't stole my idea. No, they didn't. They got your unrealized idea, because when it was given to you, you didn't manifest it. And so it needed to come in fruition. It has to be given birth into our realm of 3D, 2D, and all that. So you gotta work on that. So the thing about it is, when you know who you are, don't worry about that. Just don't use the green light where you're not going to step out your house and go to the grocery store unless every stoplight is green. Then you're going to take off. Start somewhere, and my brother will tell you, I had more ups and downs than more people can handle. Stress.
Both of
Yeah, right. And so you're going to get the stress. You're going to, on that journey, you're going to get a flat tire. You're going to go through some green lights. Then you're going to go through some caution lights. You're going to hit some wrecks in the road. You're going to get some detours. You're going to get all kinds of stuff, but you got to continue to move forward. And the reason I'm saying this, and I'll bring it to a close, is that I have done so much, but the one thing that I was just thinking it was a hobby, but it was actually calling me, is this UFO now it's bigger than UFO. It's no longer focusing on what's happening with people what's in the sky. Now I'm focusing on what's happening with people on the ground. It's more bigger, it's deeper. This thing is deep, right?
Yeah.
And but I had to reinvent myself, start over in Brokeville, for years. I'm driving Uber, I'm up live streaming, then I'm driving all night long to make $20, all of this stuff because I believed in something. And now when I look back over the 3 years of this, if somebody told me what was going to be happening, of course, that's why we don't do it. But, I got, 7-figure deals coming up, all of this stuff. And I'm in a world of Disney like shit, right? And it's and so you can follow that conscious. And I think it's not enough of us that are connected to the Most High that we're not using that power to help others. And if you become that servant leader, then your life is going to change, and that's where it's all about.
No, absolutely, absolutely, and this is what I will say too is that I want you guys to understand that and encourage you to basically step out there and do your thing, because there's going to be certain things that can only come into this realm and into the planet through you because you have that gift.
Yep.
And I know that's true for me, and I know that's true for my brother, because both of us are doing something that is out of the norm for our community, especially. It's out of the norm. Yep. We a lot of times most people in our community look at us as pariahs,
outliers, and we out there. So
and not persona non grata, so but it's something that we are so passionate about. We don't give a damn about what everybody else thinks. We just want to put something out into the world. We're going to find our tribe, because our tribe is going to connect to us.
Yes.
Our tribe is going to gravitate towards us vibrationally. It's not about what we look like. It's about what we feel like. It's about what we vibe like. So as you guys are growing too, and again, I'm helping break that frame. My brother, he's helping break that frame so that you can step out and step into the greatness that you're meant to be. That's what it's about. But you got to have the wherewithal and the confidence to say, I don't care about what everybody else is thinking, or I don't care about what they say. Because really and truly, you think about in our religious lives, we had to worry about if we were doing it right. We had to worry about if we could be accepted, or if people would accept us. That's a powerful, powerful pull and a powerful block. We got to break it.
Break it.
And brother, I'm so proud of you, for doing that, for stepping out and doing what you're doing, and just creating a space for people to say, you know what, it's safe for me to come here and talk about an experience where other people have said it's weird. I can go here and talk to Rod, so I can go to Why the Big Secret and talk to him. So y'all definitely go to his channel, family, subscribe to him, listen to what he's got to say, because he's bringing up some good stuff, and it will expand you consciously.
And plus, I'm funny. I'm really funny. So
you think you are, but anyway.
And I'll be live in about 20 minutes, 15 minutes too. But all right, brother, love you, and we'll talk.
All right, brother. You too.
Oh, by the way, y'all make sure y'all support the membership, the channels that he has. And I say this to my audience, and I got one of the most blessed. My audience blesses me like religiously, right? Because if you find value in what we do, then support what we do, because nobody pays us for this. Nobody pays you for the time and everything else, just to be a beacon. And I say this because I've had people be like, why would you ask for money, to, give us the knowledge? And like, oh, really? Okay. I'll just keep the knowledge myself and dodge the aliens for you, right? My dog is now telling me you need to go outside. But the whole point I'm saying is just support these channels, support what we do. Because it's not just us. There's a lot of people out here that spend a lot of research and time to bless that information that you can then take and then become a blessing to someone else as well. So
yeah, because we can't work for nobody. Because if we did, they'd be dictating what we'd have to
oh
say
my God,
or be trying to yank our money. So hey,
they do it now.
support definitely,
All
definitely.
right, brother, I'm out.
All right, brother, love you, and
All right, love you.
we will talk again. All right,
All right, later.
all right, family, y'all have a good one, and it has been great. Thank you for all you guys that have been here and supported us. So most definitely, all right. So y'all have a great rest of the night, and we will see y'all next time. Okay, all right, family.